I show 7 o'clock. I will call this meeting to order. I'll start with roll call. Larry?
Here.
Brent? Here. Jane?
Here.
Mary?
Here.
Jeannie?
Here.
And our students, Dylan?
Here.
Natalie? And Ashley is traveling this week, so she is out. Notice of meeting?
The meeting was properly noticed.
Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor of adopting the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Stand and do the pledge with me, please. All right, tonight we are starting with a spotlight on learning with Pewaukee Lake Elementary. Brian?
Good evening, everyone. Tonight we're going to be talking about what we call PLE Open Doors. For this, what Open Doors is, it's an hour of each professional development day where teachers get to learn from other teachers. And we oftentimes hear from PD days that there is a lot of admin talking to teachers. We'd love more time to collaborate. Things sound great, but how does it actually look in the classroom? So a portion of every day, and it's an hour of time, teachers get a chance to hear from other teachers of what they're doing in the classroom. Teachers are the ones presenting, teachers are the ones attending the sessions. It's across all grades, across all disciplines as well. And where this started was last year. Beth, myself, and the coaches, we sat down and said, what are some really good practices that are happening around our school? And we identified a ton of teachers that are doing some great things, and we asked them, hey, would you be the first ones to do the open door session? Nearly all of them either said yes because they felt like they had to because we were asking, or they said yes, we're happy to help out. After that, teachers then choose 3 different sessions to go to, each one only being 15 minutes with a 5-minute buffer in between. In our minds, 15 minutes gets a good sense of what other teachers are doing in their classroom. If you're like, yep, that's not really for me, it's 15 minutes of your day. If you're like, yeah, that sounds interesting, you know exactly who to go to and what they are actually implementing in the room. After each time, we send a survey out to all staff saying, what'd you get from it? Is there anyone you'd like to recognize? But then also, what things would you like to see on the next open doors, which then gives us a running start for, all right, who do we know around the school that's doing a lot of creative things with this? So then we're able to go to those staff members and ask them, are you willing to participate? Some, offer of like, oh, I'd love to host an open doors about this. So really taking teacher interests and having that as a driving force behind what we're doing each time. We're really excited for our professional development day coming up a week from today. We are combining with Horizon for the first time. So we've got like 5 to 6 different sessions instead of 3 to 4. And we're going to have both schools learning from each other. And we'll see where that goes, having a larger group with it. So we try to get as many different staff members as are comfortable presenting with open doors. We know not everybody is comfortable in that setting. But we want to make sure that we're highlighting as many positive things that are happening in every single classroom around our building. So up here, you'll see just a small example of the different sessions we've run. Some of these have run more than once because people who attended it had really good things to say about it, brought it back to their teams, and then people said, oh, I didn't get a chance to go. I would love to see that again. So a number of sessions have run either 2 times or even 3 times. For example, Michelle Davison's running a session again for us a week from Monday about working with students who've experienced trauma. So that was so popular, we bridged it into this time, broken into 2 so that she can go more in depth with teachers as well. So really using their interest, what they're getting from it, as the driving force. So it's great to hear from me saying, yep, this is a really big success, but I have some staff with me. We had a ton of people reach out that said, like, this has been really impactful since we started it last year and bridging into this year. So I wanted to bring them up. Sarah Torbenson, Katie Krupinski, working in our second grade inclusion team about sharing ideas across all areas. Tristan has been a presenter at Open Doors a number of times. hear her perspective about what it means to connect with other staff. And then Stephanie Beyer, who's one of our music teachers, not only as a presenter, but an attendee, where like the Encore team fits in with it and how they feel like it connects them with other areas around our school. So I'll bring them up real quickly to kind of share their experiences.
Thank you for having us here tonight.
Yeah, thank you.
So Katie and I are super lucky to get to work together with Lisa Seeger in our inclusion classroom, and it's been great for us to bring some of these ideas and share with other staff members of ideas that we have in the open doors. I like to look at open doors as almost like that sneak peek to a movie where it's like you kind of get a gist of what's going on, but you want to leave wanting to know more. And so that's been the really exciting part for us as attendees, but also as presenting, knowing that this is a very large school that we're in, and it's hard sometimes for us to have time to collaborate. This is a great time for other people to see what we're working on and come and check in and ask questions on what we're working on.
Yeah, and it's been a really great way for us to share a lot of these social and emotional learning tools that we're using in our inclusion classroom. These are things that we're using every day, whether it be a poster just hung in our classroom, whether it be visuals that we have on our lanyards, or specific tools where we're guiding kids to understand, what am I feeling? What tool can I use? And use that tool to be ready to learn. So it's really bridged that gap with us and other staff members in the building to be able to have those conversations. How can we help you problem solve? What other tools can we give you? And it's really made those connections, not just with classroom teachers, but also with like interventionists and Encore teachers, which has been really neat for us.
Because those are people we usually don't get to collaborate with, so it's a great time for us to collaborate with all those folks.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tristan. I'm a second grade teacher, and I'm honored to share from the perspective of a presenter as well as an attendee. I think that being a presenter gives me the opportunity to share what I'm an expert in, and as a Seesaw ambassador, I feel like it's my job to help others with Seesaw, so how to integrate that into the classroom, but also my latest sessions, how to create strategy groups in Seesaw, and then create and assign differentiated activities within Seesaw to help meet our students' learning needs. As an attendee, I've had an opportunity to get a glimpse, like Sarah and Katie said, into other classrooms of my colleagues. They're doing wonderful things. I don't always get to see that because I'm teaching. So it's nice to have those little snippets here and there to learn from others. I've learned how to use interactive writing into my small and whole group instruction, how to use different tools for my calming corner to help students self-regulate, and also integrated some of the SEL strategies into my morning meetings. I think the most important part here is that it provides us an opportunity to collaborate, and that collaboration is key. I think it helps us improve our instructional practices, but then additionally, it helps us meet the needs of our students through various strategies and tools, and through that, we're meeting their needs and opening their door to their future.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Beyer. I'm one of the music teachers at PLE, and I also teach a few classes at Horizon as well. From a Encore or specialist perspective, there are so many sessions that apply to Encore. Recently, I've attended ELL strategies with Mrs. Breitrick, and we've gone to speech and language sessions. We teach all of the students in the building, so there are plenty of things that apply to all of us because we have all of our kids with all of their differing needs. So we're always looking to connect with different staff members, figure out how we can best support those kids in our space. And at the beginning of the year, we also kind of each ran PE, art, music, Spanish, ran a session where classroom teachers could come into our space and see what we do with the kids. Usually they just see them when they pick them up and drop them off, but we were able to invite people into our space to see the type of learning that takes place in our classrooms and the processes that we go through as professionals and specialists in that content area. I myself have also led a few sessions in SEL. I'm a yoga teacher for adults in the evening, and so mindfulness is very big to me and my life, and I like to share that with my students in little pieces throughout class when I can tell that they really need that little bit of reset. And they actually ask for it a lot of the time too, especially when they come to me from PE. They want to just, they're like, can we do that visualization? I'm like, sure. So I've gotten to share that with staff as well. So yeah, it's been really great just to, like they said, get a little snippet into different people's rooms that you may not normally have time to connect with throughout the busyness of the week. So it's been great.
So it's about fostering teacher voices. It's about bringing them forth as the experts. I mean, they're on the ground with the kids every single day. Their creativity is what keeps our school an amazing place, and what better way to highlight it than bringing other people into their spaces to learn from them. And oftentimes when we approach someone, they oftentimes say, well, I don't feel like I'm that good at it. But from an outsider's perspective, they are doing wonderful things with it. So that recognition as well, we feel like is a great benefit. So any questions?
My initial reaction, Brian, is just to commend you and Beth for coming up with the idea and running with it. Thank you for doing that. Anyone have any questions?
What are some examples of the repeat sessions? I know you just started it this year, so are you already finding some where you're getting requests to repeat that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so this year alone, we had 2 repeats from last one. Trish is running one about Seesaw again. Michelle Davison's running one about working with students that have experienced trauma. Last year when we did it, we had a number of sessions, repeats from the library about new books to explore in the library. We had a few related to literacy practices, working with small groups, tracking information in small groups. We had a couple SEL repeats, one working with student data tracking forums or coming up with visuals for them with Laura Howard, our school counselor, Dan Deuce, our school psych. I want to say there's a repeat with some of our special ed teachers in there. Can't think off the top of my head. And then there was another one that we kind of tweaked each time. Teachers brought some of their favorite picture books that they use for either read aloud or initiating writing. They want to do another share. The next time we brought forward a share of professional texts that they got something from. So those are ones that we've had a number of different times that people enjoy. So some of them don't have a leader. It's just come and share resources with each other too.
I do have at least one question, right? So,
I hope so.
question either for you, Brian, or maybe for Danielle in terms of this one. So granted, this is a great idea, great program in terms of being able to get it launched. Did you guys conduct any kind of a formal, informal evaluation of the program and the sessions that you held and any sessions?
For the people that we approach about the sessions,
Well, no, this would be like the participants in terms of those who were attending the sessions.
so we survey the entire staff afterwards.
Okay.
And I would say probably like a third of the people respond to it. And it's just what are some of the benefits that you drew from it? What are some things that you want to learn about next time? Are there any staff that you want to recognize? We compile all that. If they recognize anyone, I send an email to leaders with all like the positive comments that people threw in there about their sessions too, just so they know that it was appreciated and other people got a lot out of it.
So is there anything that was a major takeaway in terms of an improvement, idea or thoughts for the
After
next
the
round?
first time we ran it last fall, we did like, this section was all literacy, this section was all math, this section was all SEL of the 3 sessions. People said we'd love it to be more mixed up so that if they wanted to do a literacy one, but they were presenting, they may not miss all of the literacy options in there. So then we started mixing and matching and making it, a little bit of every single category in each one. So now we're running on a Monday. There is an SEL, there's a literacy, there's a math, there's a share, and there's like a tech piece in almost every single session. We also don't put any teacher names or grade levels on it, just so that you're open to the idea of it, not necessarily drawn to, I'm a 2nd grade teacher. If a 4K teacher is presenting on it, that may not fit me. It's just about the description. So then it's, you know, it's sharing good practice with each other across all domains.
Now that you've had the sessions, do you find that there's more educators in the building that are maybe less shy and more willing to present in the future?
Slightly. I see more teachers reaching out to other teachers than I did before. I've met with some teachers like, oh, I've never connected with so-and-so from a different grade level. Like, we're working together so I can learn about a share chair for reading or for writing that I learned about, or writing partnerships. They're doing a great job. I'm going to them for ideas. So I see people working outside of their teams more readily, and I think that's kind of step one of growing confidence of being able to share ideas.
Yeah, it seems like a great team building structure. I like that a lot.
Yeah, with a large staff, you
Yeah.
try to look for every opportunity you can. There's some people who are on one side of the building who may not see someone from the other side of the building for 3 days at a time. So just opportunities for people to connect and share great things that they're doing.
Anyone else?
I would just like to compliment everybody. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for being leaders in your building, for modeling what a professional learning community looks like. I just think there's such, and this is what you're tapping into, right? Such a wealth of talent, knowledge, and experience just within our staff. And, those of us who've been in this administrative gig for a while know that oftentimes teachers like to hear it from each other a lot more than they like to hear it from us. So thank you for providing that, and I really appreciate being here tonight.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
All right. Julie, do we have any comments from citizens? I do not. All right. Moving on to salutes and recognitions. Anybody have
I would
any?
like to give a salute to Lisa Jansen. I belong to a group of women educators, and she came and talked to us about our volunteer program. I don't know if she got any volunteers, but they were so impressed with our program up here.
Good. Great.
Yep, Lisa's doing a nice job. We're up to, I think she said like 2,200 volunteers on our list.
Are we rebounding from COVID?
Yeah, I think we were down to like 1,700 or so,
Okay.
which is still a lot.
Right,
But,
yeah.
but now we're up back to where we were before COVID.
Good.
I think she has, is the website component, is that new with her, or either that or I haven't seen it, but she has a website now and she's been updating it, so that's really nice.
Oh, I didn't know
She-
that.
Yeah, she,
She might have worked on something with Miranda to update some things, I'm not sure.
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, good.
Anyone else? Yeah.
There was just something too, Jeff Barron's was officially now recognized again for his work in that area, so another pat on the back for him, I guess.
Yeah, he was recognized by his state association. He received an award. I forget the name of the award.
Had letters.
It had letters. It had letters, and it meant he did a good job. So thanks. Yeah, but no, Jeff's an excellent athletic director. So, and he's very active in the state association. He's very active. I think it had a lot to do with the professional development involvement. He's always very focused on that.
Mike, Danielle?
Danielle, you have anything? I do not.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have the minutes from our previous meetings on November 6th. We had the regular meeting and the Business Affairs Committee. We had some correspondence included in our packet, and then we had the generous gift from Sam Garrett's and D&H Industries, $8,000 for the purchase of an Eastwood plasma cam. And then our policies, 5300.08, the Educational Opportunity and Non-Discrimination, 5300.12, Student Code of Conduct, 5700.08, Interscholastic Athletics and Activities, 3100.09, Income, Short and Long-Term Borrowing, 5300.11, Search of Lockers, 6900.04, District Use of Social Media, 3100.11, Income, Resale Supplies, and 3100.12, Income, Student Parking, and 5300.07, Weapons. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Motion?
Do I have a s-
Second.
All right, is there any discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Oppose.
All right. Moving on to our new business.
I'm sorry, Madam President, point of order, I forgot to ask. Why aren't the minutes of the HGD committee part of the consent agenda?
We've never done it that way. That's been a separate,
The human growth and development, that's actually under board goals and operations. It's not, it hasn't been a component of the
it's not
consent
a,
agenda.
it's not a school board, it's not a Board of Education committee.
It is a Board of Education committee.
It is a board-appointed committee, but the discussion of the human growth and development piece is under board goals and operations.
I see that, and my question is, why is that?
We've never had a request to include it with the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our new business, continuous improvement reports. The schools are going to share with us, and we have our principals with us.
We have the summer school report first.
Oh, summer school? Sorry,
We did a amendment at the end of the week to put summer school first.
my apologies. Ladies, Lindsay, Lisa, and Katie, come on up.
Good evening, everyone. We are here just to share a little bit about our summer school program from the 2023 summer. I'm Lizzie Chandelier. I was the summer school principal. With me, I have Lisa O'Hearn. She's our associate principal for summer school, and also Katie Adams. So we're just going to share a little facts and figures and some highlights. One thing I like to point out is this crew on the screen right here. These were second graders last year. So during summer, I didn't get a chance to know them, but I know them quite well now as third graders at Horizons. That's been cool just to kind of see them as they come through the buildings. That's been an excitement for us. Oh, I have the clicker. I'm sorry.
Thank you for having us. I've been doing summer school for, I think, 34 years now. And we had an interesting summer this past summer with the air quality control. So first time ever that we've had to worry about keeping kids inside because of the air quality. And it was, I think you were in Washington at a conference, and so we were kind of back and forth. Do we keep them in? Do we not keep them in? But that was kind of something different for 2023. We added some more classes, always trying to keep it new and updated. We added cheerleading. Makers Market was kind of a arts and crafts class for older kids. Canva Bloxels took place of our Mindcraft EDU that we had. And In the Spotlight was kind of a reader's theater. So that worked out really nice. Some new exciting classes. We had resource officers that were on campus the entire time. Worked really well, especially with directing traffic and things. If we couldn't get out there, they were always available. Or if we had any concerns that we needed them to help us with. We, this year, had some retired teachers come in, and they actually read to the kids. In the library, they read to 4K and 5K kids once a week, twice a week in the library. We had all 4 buildings in use. Usually we have 3 of the 4, but this year we were able to have all 4. And we had Fetch, the therapy dog, kind of came in place of Gus this summer. We had a teacher from out of district that taught dogs are furry friends, and she had a therapy dog, Fetch, that came in.
Oh, here, I'll pause for a second, just a couple of our picture highlights. All right, so looking ahead, obviously our goal is always improvement every year. So these are just some of the things that are on the docket for this next summer as we, even though it's November, we begin our planning already for summer school. We had a lot of discussion about changing some of our 4K, 5K, and first grade timelines for them and summer school. One thing we noticed with our 4K students specifically, these are students that we have never met before. They're brand new to us, so we really want to make sure they have a great experience coming to our buildings. So one of our goals is just try to focus on that play component and also just getting them used to the building. So we were kind of finding that the length of time there with us was really long, and that was causing them to have some struggles within our building. So that's been some of the focus of just some discussions that we're working on adjusting for this coming summer. We also want to partner with our ESY program, that's extended school year. We were finding that they were tapping into some of the classes that we were offering. They were working with some of the paras that we had. So we're like, we have two separate things working next to each other. Let's pull those programs together and kind of work together simultaneously. So that's one of our goals this year. We are interested in adding new classes. That's always, as Lisa mentioned, always a goal of ours. Specifically, we noticed this big gap in grades 6 through 8 classes. There's a lot of students that wanted to sign up for summer school and not as many classes to offer. So we just have a couple ideas of some classes that we can offer to kind of help fill those gaps. And then also just our goal is to kind of increase some of our support from the high school for credit recovery. You know, obviously as 3 elementary ladies, we love our elementary and we love our high school folks, but again, we need to tap into some of their resources to make sure that we provide all the support that those students need as well at the high school level. Here's a few numbers for you. So the one I really want to highlight is that student count. So that's over 1,000 kids. And just to put it in that perspective, that's double the size of Horizon. So that's the number that I always try to put in my mind when we're planning this, because that factors into how do we get these kids across campus throughout the day? How do we do traffic and pull all of these students on campus every day without busing? So that's just the number I want to highlight there, is that it's a very successful program and we accommodate a lot of students with a lot of different needs. And so trying to find classes that cater to them but also meet some of their academic needs as well is always a challenge, but we did a really nice job last year kind of meeting some of those needs.
All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Katie, and I think one celebration that we have with staffing this summer is that we had an increase of PSD staff teaching summer school. So that was really great to see. We did have, you know, slightly fewer numbers of in-district and out-of-district paraprofessionals and aides, but even with the smaller numbers, we were still able to meet the needs of all of our students, which was excellent. We still have a high number of high school helpers and also some college-age helpers that come back to work with us. They always share their experiences attending summer school when they were little, and having them serving as assistants in those classes is extremely helpful to teachers, whether they are running errands for the teachers, running kids back to the health room, helping younger students find their way around campus to their classes. They are truly such an essential part of our program, so thank you to all the high schoolers who also work summer school for us. For credit recovery, that is the high school component where students are that is more of the academic component where students are, you know, making up credits from the school year or working to reach proficiency in standards. You'll notice that this year we did have a slightly lower number of students enrolled. One thing to keep in mind with that is that we did offer less classes for credit recovery than we historically have. We were only offering 1 math class this summer in 2023. In 2022, for comparison, we offered 3 math classes, so just keep that in mind as far as lower enrollment. We still have about 10 students. Last year we had 12 that are making up more than 1 class. So instead of a typical credit recovery session is for 2 hours, so those students were there then for 4 hours, making up 2 classes. We did only have 1 PSD teacher teaching summer school for credit recovery again this year, so I think that is a goal moving forward, is having more of the PHS or other PSD teachers, involved in the credit recovery program to make sure that our students are not just making up their credit, but that they are reaching proficiency and standards so that they can be successful in their following classes and then in their postgraduate adventures.
So again, looking ahead, this is more of the logistics and administrative part, but we are lucky to have Beth Ingersoll and Paul Bursai helping us this coming summer. Beth's going to help with Lindsay and working together, and it will be really nice because we'll have both schools. It's nice that, I know all the 3rd through 5th grade, and we know them really well, but we don't know the younger kids. So having that dual help will be really nice. And Paul Bursai is going to help us on the high school 4 credit and credit recovery classes, since he's more of the expert on that than we are. We were looking for a secretary, very nervous that we didn't have one, but we It took a lot, hey? We got her. Nicole's coming back again this year, so we worked really hard. And that's kind of nice in that she's at Horizon School right now, so that'll help. We have a late end to our school year, so it kind of impacted summer school, so we're looking at a little bit different change this year in that the first session will be 8 days and will actually run 3 days into the 4th of July week, which we haven't done in a long time. We've always had that week off. So hopefully it's gonna work. So the first session will be 8 days and the second session will be 10 days. So we'll end at the same time. We'll just start a week later. We are also going to talk with John Gahan about flat rates for out of district rather than, right now they pay for each class. So if you have a child that's fired up for first grade, they pay the same amount for 4 hours as if you had a child that was in 6th grade going to 4 different classes. They'll pay for 4 classes versus 1. So we're kind of want to get that straightened out. And then always working around school improvements. So this year, it looks like the roof at PLE is going to be our challenge, but we always make it work somehow, so.
All right, and just to kind of show the dates up on the screen for you, these are our planned dates for session A and session B. That's where a majority of our students fall is in session A and session B, and then we're also working on dates right now for our credit recovery classes and then the 4 credit classes as well. So that's to come. But again, we're already working on plans to get it rolling. Applications for our teaching staff go out in December. So again, this work is beginning very, very rapidly. So any questions from anybody that I can hopefully answer?
Lindsay, could you go back to the slide that had like your numbers and your
Sure.
statistics?
I'm assuming you want this one?
Yeah. Revenue generated from course fees.
Why was 2023 so low?
Yeah, so this was, John and I had met and we had talked about just access for students. So any student that was in district did not have fees assessed this last year, so that it was more accessible for students.
Okay, but the previous 2 years, they did?
Correct, yeah. And it wasn't all classes, it was like the duct tape class that had a lot of materials attached to it. So it was more of an access for all of our students. Anybody, the 205 is coming from students that were out of district that attended our summer school session. So like Lisa said, they paid per class that they attended. But again, the students that are PSD students that attend summer school, there was no fees assessed this year. Which was honestly, it was great because any student got to take any class that they wanted, which was really a nice opportunity for them.
That's something I know, John, historically, if you went back before 2020, and Lisa, you probably really have the history in this, we used to have a lot more fees coming in, and he's really worked towards eliminating fees and trying to make the courses more accessible to the community. So that's been something that we've worked toward.
So obviously, yeah, the students, the non-resident students, like, I mean, 96, that's probably like a very high number, one of the highest ever. I mean, was it the kinds of courses, classes, or what makes it?
That's a great question. I don't know what the draw was, more so than other years. I know some of it was high school related, like I know some of it was, we want to have, honestly, we had a lot of interest in some of our 4 credit classes from non-residents. Some of them were teachers, students, or parents, children, their own children, where they wanted to come and teach summer school, so they brought their children along with. But yeah, we accept anybody, so yeah, it was just a great opportunity to kind of have them have access to our school district as well and take part in the classes.
Then could you go down a couple more slides?
Sure.
This one?
Yep.
Okay, your slides. So, and again, maybe it's like it's always been there, obviously, but the fact that we had, in 2022, there were 32, but we had 44 out-of-district teachers, and obviously this year it was 40 and then 38. Again, that's a pretty big, to me, those are like big numbers in the sense that we get a lot of outside teachers coming in and wanting to be here during the summer, or?
Are you asking if we do get a lot?
What's that?
Yeah. Are you asking if we do get a lot?
Yeah, well, it looks like, I mean, it seems like, if the numbers are pretty equal, I mean, again, what attracts them or what makes them want to come here and teach during the summer?
Yeah, I think that part of it is like the half day. I know that that's a quality that we get a lot, that we're done at noon every day. I know that that's something that's been brought to our attention. I think just the different classes that we offer. Lisa does a really nice job with our schedule where if they teach one class, sometimes they teach that same class 2 or 3 times. So it's not like I'm having to plan for 4 separate classes. I might have different age levels, but I can generally keep my plans similar. So the consistency has been good. We also get a lot of reports that our kids do really well in summer school and really want to be here, so attendance as well.
Substitute teachers would be considered out of district, and a lot of substitute teachers teach summer school.
Okay.
And a lot of paras that may have a teaching license also teach summer school.
Good, good.
You get a number of, like, right out of college, trying to build experience, or is that, do we get much of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, I think all 3 of our college helpers are all college students that have come back that are currently on track, like they're going for education
Right,
right now. So
right.
this is great experience for them too.
And one thing I'd just like to add about the out-of-district teachers, they're often teachers who do come back year after year. So some of these out-of-district teachers, for whatever their reason is, they are pretty loyal to us in the summer and have, been for 3, 4, or more years.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, thank you.
Great
Lily.
report. Thank you for your time. Have a nice evening.
Thanks.
Just as Stacy's handing those out, I just want to compliment, I mean, we have a really, really good summer school program, and they do it's a lot of work. And I just really recognize and appreciate all the time. I mean, it's December and they're already working on summer school. So, this is not just something that happens during that window of time in the summer. So, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to the continuous improvement reports now. Danielle, are you gonna start it out, or the guy just gonna come up?
We can.
Say, Mike, you want
I
to?
want to pull that up there, Julie. Thank you. All right, so phase 3 of your 3 chapters of continuous improvement reports that come every fall. Could you go to the next slide, Julie? All right, so this is kind of what we've showed you before. So this just reflects our system of continuous improvement, or the cycle that we go through. So this time of the year is that kind of purple rectangle, the reporting, and we also talk initial implementation. That's kind of the new plan. The initial implementation are the new school improvement goals and the new tactical plans for strategic plan, but it's also reporting. So we're kind of looking back. So these reports, like the other ones you've seen, are heavily about what we accomplished last year. And then there's some looks ahead in these in terms of what are some things we're looking forward to and focusing on this year. So you've had the departments all give their reports to you. You had Candace do her extensive data and assessment report to give you that background, so you have all that prior knowledge going into then now specific school-based reports. I did include this presentation, I threw it in there today, in board docs in case it's easier for you to follow along at your seat. But you also have the individual kind of more narrative-based reports that each of the principals and associate principals work together to prepare for you. And with that, next slide, Julie. So again, this is a really critical part of accountability for us and for your awareness as a board in terms of our performance, looking specifically at each building. And then next slide. Pewaukee Lake, you're up first. So Brian, come on down. Beth, feel free to join him if you want to. No, you're going to be that moral support from a couple rows back. I see how it goes.
Hello again.
Hello, Brian. Welcome.
Been a minute. So jumping right into our priority goals, we were focused on literacy. Last year, the previous years, we've been doing some math. We focused on writing, 5K through 2nd grade. That was an area where we hadn't done a lot of collaborative work over the past few years. We wanted to bring that to the forefront. But since 4K doesn't participate in the district writing assessment, we focus on letter ID and letter sounds for them, so they were still included as a part of our goal. I know up here it's very, very small to see, but in the CIR report, you should have the information. Then also if you're able to pull it up, you can see. But with letter ID uppercase, letter ID lowercase, and then letter sound. You can see that our 4K hit all 3 goals. And when you look at where they are, we have 4Kers coming into first grade that, as a grade level average, know nearly all of their uppercase and lowercase letters, and well over 2/3 of their sounds, which makes them emergent readers. And we're seeing more and more of a trend of kids coming into kindergarten ready to read than we've seen before. Moving into 5K, they didn't have baseline data just because they don't do a DWA in 4K, and we wanted to keep the data from the previous year following that same group of kids. But you can see that in spring, they hit both their goal targets for punctuation and craft.
When you say craft, you mean letter sounds, right? Is that craft? Or?
No, craft is a little bit different. In the DWA, it's about idea generation, adding descriptions, elaboration, having a clear beginning, middle, and end to a story. It all depends on which grade level. Talking about for kindergarten, it's having a structure to their story, that it's clear, it's a clear message from beginning to end. There's a clear beginning, a middle part, and a clear conclusion to the end of it as well. And then they add on to that in first and second grade. And then in first grade, they hit 2 out of their 3 target goals, and you can see that with punctuation, they missed it by 0.04. So we're really happy with the growth that they made in punctuation, craft, and transitions. And then second grade, they made the largest growth out of any grade level. They didn't hit their punctuation, craft, or spelling goals. But this was also a great insight to us about how we are using our proficiency scales and rubrics to assess writing. And that really got us starting about what are our expectations in kindergarten, moving to first grade, moving to second grade, and are we aligned between how they should be ending 5K moving into first grade, and how they should be ending first grade moving into second grade. So a lot of great conversations happened out of it. Really proud of the growth that these kids made, although they didn't hit their targets, but we're really happy with where they got with it. Other literacy highlights in this, kind of a repeat for 4K, but just to put a general spin on it, 75% of kids met or exceeded 1 year's growth in STAR that they take, on top of the growth that they made in letter ID. So that's something different, just another great data point there for 4K. 5K through second, focusing on more of the reading side of things. You can see that in 5K, the grade level average was an EF. So that is equivalent to a 3 or a 4 on the report card. So proficient, moving in between proficient and advanced. And then we also see over 90% of kids hitting either their F&P, their running record goal for reading, or a STAR. First grade, again, the grade level average was a J, right between a J and a K, again, equivalent to a 3 or 4 on the report card. Nearly 94% of these kids met their reading goal or their STAR goal. In second grade, they ended right in the middle of a level M, which is equivalent to a 3, so the grade level average proficient for reading there. And again, nearly 94% met or exceeded either their reading goal or their STAR goal.
Brian, what does FMP stand for?
Fountas
thank
and
you.
Pinnell,
Yep.
And that's the running record system that we use. And math, not to be outdone, we made a lot of great growth in math as well. The 2 things that we assess as a part of our comprehensive growth assessment for 4K, nearly 92% of kids were proficient in verbal counting. So you can see the average number that kids could count up to by the end of 4K. So the grade level average of what they can count to is nearly 50, which is great because the 5K beginning of the year is right around 20. So we're really happy about that. And then number combinations on a 5-point scale, you can see the grade level average was right about a 4.5, meaning that nearly 90% of kids were proficient in this. And it's different ways of making 5, bridging into kindergarten where you learn different ways of making 10. And 5K, they have 6 different areas on their comprehensive growth assessment. And to be proficient, we say they have to be proficient in all 6 categories. I didn't list all 6 up there, but to see that 89% of students were proficient in it meant that 89% of kids were proficient in all 6 of those categories across the board. If you got 5 but weren't in one, you're not part of what we deem as proficient on this. So when you look at how many different areas for 5K, we're really, really impressed and really happy with this number at the end of this year. And then first grade, 80% were proficient in the CGA. And then when you look at STAR as well, which they take, nearly 90% of kids were proficient in CGA or STAR. And then in second grade, nearly 75% were proficient or exceeded proficiency in the CGA or STAR. The one area for second grade that we are looking at is subtraction. I noted that it's proficiency without subtraction. We actually found out that we're holding students in second grade to a third grade subtraction standard. So kind of playing around with what our expectations are for subtraction. Do we adjust it? Do we hold them at high standard? Heading into this year, we said we're going to hold it to the third grade standard. We're going to give a bit more flexibility for using different strategies. So we're looking for that number to go up, even though our standard of at the end of the year of third grade subtraction fluency is still there. Opportunities for improvement. In 4K, we're always looking to develop more dramatic play, immerse those kids in their play instead of having set stations for them. We want to increase teacher capacity to deliver intervention at the classroom level, which goes into what we call the PLE warehouse. Can't take credit for this. This is something that we did on the heels of Horizon. They did a phenomenal job with this last year. So just seeing how they offer different tools for teachers to have different resources to utilize to meet the learning needs in their classrooms. We're very much riding their coattails. So thanks, Horizon, for that one. And then also a lot more vertical calibration between different assessments. We were able, as a part of DWA, to have teachers observe teachers of the grade below and the grade above to see what they do for writing, to get a sense of what different people are doing. We like to do some of that with running records and math as well. So looking for opportunities to get teachers in classrooms outside of their grade level even more. Moving into the grad profile, you can see here that nearly 97% of kids participated in at least 2 different activities to contribute to others, whether it's their classroom, within the school, the district community, outside the community. Design thinking, nearly 98% of kids participated in that. Compete, a lot of the repeat data that we just went through. But just to make a note, our commit goal was part of a self-selected goal, which is built into compete. And you can see there that 99% of kids participate in this either individually or a part of a classroom goal that they worked on with that. And then connect, we do a survey 3 times a year to gauge where kids feel connected to other kids in their classroom and to staff. And you can see where it goes from there. 5K and 4K is 4K is just about student connections and knowing the teachers in your room. Do you acknowledge that there's more than one teacher in there? 5K is about student connections and connecting to other staff members. First grade and second grade, we have them do instead of yes or no on a sliding scale from 1 to 5. Where do you feel? 5 being the highest. And you can see the growth there of those who are 3 and up. We always score really high within the classroom, and we're looking at ways of building connections outside of the classroom, which we'll get to in just a moment. And then we do a weekly care survey. Nearly 97% of kids participate in that on a regular basis about how are they feeling, do they eat breakfast, do they get enough sleep the night before. Other highlights, PTO did an amazing job fundraising for our new playground. We're finishing that up this year. Learning Lab was up for the first time last year. We used that as a part of DWA times, district running assessment. We had VR goggles in there for classes to do. A lot of cool activities running out of that room. Officer Chorus joined us in January. She's been an incredible addition to our school. Can't rave enough about her. And then, as always, Book of the Year, Spring Sing Field Days are just the most adorable days you could ever come across. They're fantastic. So then looking ahead, as I noted as a part of Connect, we're doing more buddy class activities this year that our building care team are working through, so that we're having classrooms for different grade levels get together for kids to meet other kids from other grade levels, big buddies, little buddies, have teachers connect, and they have structured activities they do together. New playground is up now. When it's light out, you guys should, play on it. Should be fun. Be a board building, like community building event. And then we also have a building care team that is really working hard this year on supporting student and staff mental and emotional health, and then a continuation of peer and vertical collaboration during PD days, like we just talked about with Open Doors, kind of bridging that to Horizon to see where we can get in expanding what we're doing as a part of that program.
All right, anybody have any questions for Brian regarding PLE's report?
I have one on the slide about the Connect, you showed the growth.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay, so first grade showed a really big jump for staff connections outside of the classroom. Do you have any idea, like, what happened?
When they come in kindergarten, oftentimes we found they're not quite aware of like how many staff members are there to support them. So they oftentimes remember either who they had for 5K or who they had for 4K. In first grade, they really become aware of teachers that are in that hallway that greet them in the morning, or their on-course staff that are there. So that's why we see a larger jump in that in first grade than we do in second grade. They know a lot of staff, so their connection to them is a little bit smaller. We identify the kids who put, one or two, and we look at, are they new to us? Are they not new to us? And what staff members have previous connections that they can rekindle with them to kind of bump up that student feeling connected to staff members around. And the way we phrase it is other adults outside of your teacher that you can go to and feel comfortable going to if you have a problem.
Any other questions for Brian?
Real quick, the buddy classrooms, did you say, is that within PLE? So like first grade with a second grade classroom, or what's the dynamic there?
Yeah, so is it 310? There you go. 4K with first grade, 5K with second, and we're running 4 of them throughout the school year. Yeah, so 4 different times through the school year, there's a set day where everybody gets together in a buddy class. And we do it as a part of morning mingle, the morning meeting, and there's a set activity that they do that we plan for kids to interact. Last time they made like friendship bracelets with each other, and they added a bead to it, and they answered a question with their buddy of like, what makes you happy? What are some things that you enjoy? And as they talk about it, they add a bead to their friendship bracelet. So the older kids thinks it's really fun because they get to work with younger kids. They get to see old teachers that they've had before. Teachers get to revisit kids' classrooms, and they do it in either classroom, so it's a shared setting.
How long have you guys been doing that, Brian?
Buddy classes have been around ever since I got here, but in a very loose way of you do something with them when it's convenient for you. We know it's not a lot of people doing it. So now if we plan it for them, saying everyone's going to do a buddy class activity, everyone's going to get that experience at least 4 times a year. Some people do a lot more things throughout the year, they already have, but now at least every class will have at least 4 opportunities to get together with a buddy class.
Yeah, what had popped into my head is I wonder if as that becomes more of a system, if that'll help with transitions. So I go over to Horizon, and now I know some older students at Horizon, and we're in the 3rd grade. Maybe I know some 5th graders. Maybe that supports transition. But
yeah,
that's just a speculation on my part. Any other questions? All right, thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Brian.
Well done. On to Horizon. Boy, Pete really timed his leave well for you, Lindsay.
So you got to hear from me twice tonight. All right, give me 1 second. All right, so first of all, I just want to start with our motto, which was new beginning of last year. So be curious, be kind, be unstoppable. That was developed by our staff. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how that plays a part in our day-to-day activities in a little bit. So to kind of start our goals for last year, our literacy goal really focused on 70% of our students would make 1 year's growth on the STAR and the Fonda-Spinell assessment. And then for math, we kind of had a tiered approach, a different goal for every grade level based on the need of that grade level. So third grade, 80% of students would make 1 year's growth on their problem-solving strategies. That was measured by the CGA. And then fourth and fifth grade, we really focused on multiplication fluency. We were noticing a big need with multiplication fluency as the math strategies start to get more complex. Just that need for automaticity with multiplication fluency was a big need that we noticed. That was why we really wanted to target those goals last year. So for literacy, you can see where we started in the fall, and then you can also see this was based on our STAR data, so you can see where we were at the spring of 2023. Although we weren't able to meet our targets on these goals, there was a lot of learning that took place. For example, in third grade specifically, we noticed a really high need for students with decoding support. We were noticing that their comprehension was very high, but when it came time to read those multisyllabic words, they were really struggling, and they were kind of looking at the first sound of a word and then just kind of guessing with the rest of it. So that was a big need, and we've kind of taken some steps this year to incorporate some of that in our small group time to make sure that they're getting that work right now. And then you can also see for fifth grade as another example, we noticed a lot of STAR focus is very heavy on vocabulary. I think the first 10 to 15 questions are all vocabulary based. And so we really focus on fifth grade of ensuring that all students are getting science and social studies, but then also just having some specific targeted time to work on vocabulary instruction as well. So although we didn't meet our target, it did give us some really good opportunities of where we can grow from here into our coming years and into this current school year. So math, you can take a look. We had some really positive growth with math. I just want to highlight, if you look at the fall where we started on our CGA, this third grade was at 7% and they jumped to 75%. Same with fourth grade from 16 to 53. And then fifth grade went from 32% on multiplication fluency to 90. So we saw some really good growth. It also really showcased that students need more than just flashcard practice to practice those multiplication fluency. So it gave our teachers really good experience with just learning different ways that students learn their multiplication fluency, and then making sure that they have access to other students to practice that, but also the teachers within the classroom. So again, great growth, but also just some great learning opportunities for our staff as well. Some of our big highlights, and so I do want to talk a little bit about our forward assessment results as well. You can see that 70% or more of our students did in third, fourth, and fifth grade all met their benchmark and Fonda-Spinell benchmark assessments. This was for our literacy goal. 71% of our fifth grade students were proficient or higher as measured by the Wisconsin Forward. And then if you look into math, 70% of our fifth grade students met their STAR growth goal in math, and then 75% of our third and fifth grade students were proficient or higher as measured by the Wisconsin Forward. So this really brought about a conversation with discrepancies between the STAR assessment and the Forward. And so that kind of led to some changes in some of our assessment practices moving into this year, and I'll talk about that at the next slide, of just making sure that when we focus on our STAR, we don't give it too often so that students don't, when they take it, they make sure that they try their best on every time. It's not happening so often that they kind of become immune to it. Some of our other big highlights from last year was our WIN work, and we've talked about that several times when we've come to previous board meetings, just that tier 1.5 intervention, really making sure that teachers have classroom interventions that can happen right inside the classroom. And then also a lot of our group, or our professional development time last year focused on small group instruction. So really looking at the results from your data and then kind of planning small groups accordingly and really targeting the needs of students in a small group or even individual basis. So we had some really good successes last year, and that work continues into this year as well. Some opportunities for improvement. So as we discussed, we've kind of been working backwards in our tiers. We had really strong tier 2 and tier 3. Last year we had a big focus on our tier 1.5. So this year our goal was that tier 1 small group strategy instruction. So that the work that we did on professional development days has really carried over into this year. And obviously, as Brian mentioned, taking part in open doors, we also hope that getting some support from the other buildings across campus as well can really give our teachers a good highlight of some really strong instructional practices that they can use in their classroom.
Our goal this year, as we talked about at one of our board spotlights, was our building-wide MTSS system. So we've really tried to incorporate that into our building this year, and that continues to be fine-tuned as we go through. But that's been a big goal that our data kind of showed us that we needed to have a process for this year. The other, need some water up here. The other thing that we have talked about before too is with that MTSS, that umbrella approach. So just making sure that we're also incorporating behavior and SEL into that as well. So we've kind of been taking part in ASA and watching their work with Character Strong and the success that they've had. So part of our goal for this year is to look at a potential resource for our building, the elementary. So we do have a pilot of a resource that we're going to work on this year to see if that's something we want to incorporate in the future. We kind of talked about adjusting our assessment practices. Again, we noticed that discrepancy between STAR and Forward. So this year, previous years, we used to take the STAR literacy assessment almost monthly. And we've just noticed that when the students go to take it, there was just kind of that lull, or that they weren't as like gung-ho about it as they would be when they don't take it as often. So this year, we're down to 3 literacy assessments and 3 math assessments. That way we hope that we're able to get some really accurate results. And then also, you'll kind of see when you go through our graduate profile, we wanted to make some adjustments just based on the age of our students. We wanted to make sure that, yes, they are upper elementary students, but we also want to make sure that our approaches are developmentally appropriate for them and something that they can have success with as well. So taking a look at our contribute goal, each student will complete an annual school selected service project. That was our contribute goal. We really wanted students to kind of take this on independently or in a small group versus a student-led or a classroom-led opportunity. So we had some students that took part in their own fundraisers last year to support other families. They were creating bracelets for other students. So some really student-centered activities that were happening. This year we have a lot of groups that the students are planning. So that was a really exciting part of kind of seeing students go from the classroom-led to individual or small group-led. Our create and our commit goal are very, very similar. It was creating a presentation. We've kind of had the discussion that's really become more of an expectation with our student-led conference in the spring. So one of our goals this year is to change those and make those more appropriate to some authentic experiences within our building. The compete goal is listed up there, which we kind of just went over all of that data in the previous slides. Connect goal, so that was where each student will engage in a mixed grade level. Kind of what Brian had said. With our building being that letter E, we really kind of get siloed into our grade levels, so we really want to continue to offer opportunities for other grade levels to connect with other grade levels and teachers to connect with other teachers. So that continues to be a goal of ours. But just through different activities that teachers did, I know Lisa O'Hearn, she kind of led a placemat activity last year where we got to do buddy classes and do a similar activity. So again, it's a work in progress, but we are seeing some successes there. Again, I mentioned the commit goal. Our goal this year is to kind of make that more appropriate for them versus just something that's already an expectation. So we're making adjustments to that for this year. And then care, I kind of want to highlight. Last year, our students took a care survey, and then it was very similar to what they do at PLE. So it talked about if they have a good night's sleep, is their locker organized. It kind of gets into some of that executive functioning. Our care goal was that they would create a personalized plan for that. This really had to be teacher-led, to be honest. We kind of find that even adults sometimes struggle with making a plan of action on some of those skills. So this year, we also want to make some adjustments so that it's more of focusing on regulation skills and building that toolbox of strategies versus trying to come up with a personalized plan, which we're just not, developmentally, we're not sure if they're quite there yet. All right, some of our big highlights from the year. Part of Horizon, our big goal is belonging. It kind of goes back to that motto. So we have those traditions that we continue every year that our students and our community and our families really look forward to. So again, we had our Veterans Day ceremony. March Madness was a big success. And then we also do Camp Whitcomb that our 5th graders attend for 2 days every year. Some of the new traditions that have been brought to Horizon within the past couple of years, we took notice that, PLE has Spring Sing, ASA has promotion, high school has their graduation ceremony. We really wanted a way to culminate our end of the year, so we developed our 5th grade talent show that our 5th graders are so excited for. I already have participants coming up to tell me that they're going to be in the talent show this year, so it's really been an exciting part of a way for us to end our year as a group. We did this prior to Horizon welcoming 3rd grade into our building, so we did have 4th grade welcome them into we had 4th grade welcome night, but now with the shift and due to COVID, that hadn't really come back. So we had a 2nd grade welcome night last year. That was a big success, and it kind of leveled the anxiety of some of our families and students as they got to do a scavenger hunt around our building and get to know our staff a little bit.
And then we also had family game night, which was a huge success last year. Julie Reuter has really taken on a school newspaper at Horizon, so the Hook Junior has kind of taken off. So if you were ever at an event and you see some lanyards with students, those are our Hook Junior students. She does a really nice job with kind of incorporating the newspaper and research, but also just having a way of bringing our fifth grade students together. And then we also focus a lot on building community within our building. So we've done a school-wide fall event. We did a virtual event where all classes get on a virtual meeting and we do an activity there. And then we had High Interest Day, which Katie Adams kind of takes the lead on, and she's doing that again this year. And then I want to go back to our motto awards. Every month we give away our Be Kind, Be Curious, Be Unstoppable awards to students and staff within our building to kind of make sure that those are our ideals that we're hitting every single month. And then looking ahead, we've kind of gone through this several times, but we're just continuing to solidify our MTSS processes within Horizon, within all the tiers. We do have a building care team, so that work in regards to student care, but also adult care, we continue to work on that. And also looking at the resource that we're trying to see if that fits our building need. And then also our leadership team has really kind of taken off this year. Our goal is really shared leadership. So we have two teams. We have a BAT team, which is our building advisory team, and a data team. So they kind of have their own pathways and their own goals, but then we kind of come together also just to make sure that leadership is shared. And then also we're always continuing to find ways to vertically align teachers and students across the building so that they're connected to each other, not just their grade levels. So, and as you can see, some of our wonderful pictures up there of our successes that we had last year too in picture form. So that's Horizon in a nutshell.
Lindsay, I was noticing that in general, our fourth grade class is just kind of lagging a little bit on their test scores, and we know that not all classes are equal,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And sometimes certain classes go through life's experiences that can also alter learning for them. Do you guys have any thoughts on why that fourth grade class is just not quite up to the performance level of third and fifth?
Yeah, I agree with you. That has been a noticing of ours. I don't have an answer for it. I think for us, it's really just, like I said, finding that tier one support is really what we've been focusing on this year is what are the things within the classroom that we can really do to support that learning. But it has been a noticing of our fourth grade team also. So I know ACE has done, they kind of have a new process where they're looking at data per grade level or per their team, and that's been a want of our teachers as well. Of I really want to look at my class's data so I can really take a look at what I can do also. So again, it's definitely something on our radar, but as far as the why, I'm not quite sure why that grade level, why it happens during that time.
And overall, so I know Danielle, if you recall, I don't remember Candace's report specific to that group, but sometimes it's very cohort specific. You can have some cohorts are really high performers, some cohorts don't have as high of average performance. And I just don't know if going back to third grade, second grade, if this group had a little bit of a lower performance on average.
Yeah, it's usually hard to tell in fourth grade because the trend data starts really forward in third grade.
Right.
But fourth grade, I would say, has had a trend history of being on the lower end for us, not just with this particular cohort. So, we have been looking at the curriculum to also do an analysis of when are they receiving certain elements of the curriculum and how does that align to the elements on the forward test. It's a piece that we noticed in math a couple of years ago that there were some elements, specifically geometry, that appear on the forward test, and when they were taking that then in early to mid-April, we weren't teaching it until May. And so we adjusted that so that math, if you go back to like that rankings data from Candace's report, like it is ticking upwards now that we've just adjusted where the teaching occurs. And so we're kind of looking at that with literacy as well to see, is there some elements that are just like out of sync with when the test is given versus when we teach it, and stuff. So that, there are some curricular pieces as well that I think may contribute to that, but that's a piece that we continue to look at.
Thank you.
Other questions for Lindsay?
Maybe a couple, and it's in your section where you have the commit and the care. And it was used the term, it was like a student conference, if you will, but it's the student, when you're having that conference, it's a student, parent, and teachers, right? Yeah, okay.
Yep. Yeah, but again, because that's kind of an expectation now, we feel that that's not really a good goal to have at this point, because it's an expectation now, so that's why we wanted to make some adjustments for this upcoming year.
But it's beginning to build the mindset or create sort of some of the structure for the kids to be able to learn how to address those things, right? The behaviors and.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Anything
Oh,
else?
back to the Julie Royer one.
Sure.
Should probably highlight in there, because it was just like a highlight in everybody that I tell about it. So when we retired the Derek Watt and the TJ Watt jerseys, the fifth grade, they were either just getting started with their newsletter, but these fifth grade students, little boys, I think, or whoever was there, had an opportunity to have participate in a press conference, if you will. And there were people, like an official reporter from, I can't remember which station was there, but these students from Horizon were able to participate in that press conference. And it must have been like a thrill of a lifetime for them in terms of being able to.
Yeah, she does a really nice job. She's had some like guest speakers come in already this year that are reporters for a newspaper or, and they come and meet after school and they get to interview the students get to interview them also. She's offering a lot of great opportunities for our
So
students.
that was a major plus in my mind for.
Yeah.
They pretty much led that press conference. They really did.
Yeah, so.
Anybody else for Lindsay? Thank you, Lindsay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lindsay.
All right, Katie, come on down for Asa Clark.
Good evening, everyone. Oh, there we go. All right, Katie Spadoni, Associate Principal at the middle school. Get to represent all that was accomplished at the middle school last year. So happy to be with you all this evening. So at the middle school, our priority goals really focused on that compete for literacy and math. For the past few years, we've set the lofty goal of having 70% of our students meet 2 out of a certain number of measures in literacy and math. For literacy, it was 2 out of the 4 measures. You could see those 4 different measures listed there. Some are achievement-based and some are growth-based. So we really look at course proficiency for both English language arts, and then we also have identified social studies and science standards that align with literacy practices, so we pull those in as a contributing factor to their overall performance. We've got STAR included, and then for Wisconsin Forward, we use as a measure for 6th and 7th grade, and then pre-ACT for 8th grade. So we are happy to report that last year, 83% of our students at the middle school met 2 out of their 4 identified measures for literacy. On the math side of things, our goal again was 70% for 2 out of the 4 measures listed below. The only one different there is the second measure. For math, we use the foundational skills assessment, which is given in all grade levels. And so that is a different measure there. We still use course proficiency, STAR, and then again, forward and pre-ACT. And for math, 73% of our students met their expectations in 2 out of 4 measures. This was the first year that we've exceeded our goal, so we were very, very excited and celebratory. It was a great first staff meeting at Asa Clark Middle School. We really just wanted teachers to feel that success. Coming back from COVID, dealing with our adolescent learners who were really trying to navigate, life without that social interaction for a while, we really rooted ourselves in those instructional practices and got back to the basics, and it paid off in really big ways. Being consistent, communicating, we were really excited to get to celebrate the work of our staff in meeting our priority goals last year. Here are just some specific successes within math and language arts. Obviously, these were all at or above our our goals for the year. Our 8th grade students in STAR and math. Our pre-ACT data was really strong in 8th grade for both math and language arts, so these were just some specific components we wanted to highlight. Opportunities for improvement. I mentioned our instructional playbook, our instructional practices. We really want to focus this upcoming year on the deep learning strategies. That's the collaborative learning, right? We know that kids are social beings, so how can we tap into that and make sure that it's productive? And that has a really high effect size on student learning, so how can we lean into that a little bit more? Overall, out of 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, our 7th grade was a little bit lower in both the areas of literacy and math, so really focusing on the fidelity of that instruction and supporting our teams at the 7th grade level, and then continuing with our PLC process. I would add, another piece there is we're really focusing our professional development days for lots of time with our vertical content teams, where our instructional lead can lead that group of individuals, thinking about small groups, data, and how we're using that data to drive instruction within the classroom setting. Thinking about our other graduate profile indicators, 100% of our students engaged in the design thinking process for a service learning opportunity. We met that goal, so 100% of our kids got that experience last year. We just talked about compete. For our commit goal, that was a student-led conference, ACP conference at the end of the school year. Our goal was 100% of our students to participate in that. We partially met that goal at 96%. And then our care goal was to have 100% of students create that personalized plan, similar to what Lindsay was describing for you. And that goal we did not meet. The reason we did not meet it is because kids didn't hit submit. So you'll see there that like 100% of the kids created a plan, but the system that we had built isn't working for our kids to be able to like actually account for it. So we've made some adjustments this year as far as who owns that process to make sure that the kids' work is counted for. So that's an adjustment that we were able to make. Other highlights from last school year. Last year was the first year that we had integrated the Character Strong resource into our SEL and ACP framework. That has been a tremendous help for us, being consistent in language. So that's a big celebration. We continued with our extended learning days last year, where teachers host activities just purely based upon connection, passions that they have, focusing on connection across grade levels with different staff members. Last year, we also hosted a parent-staff book study with 30 staff and parent participants. We read How to Talk So Teens Will Listen and That They Will Talk Back. And so that was a great experience. Our drama performance last year was Madagascar Junior. And then we also benefit from Officer Chorus, the additional SRO, and then Michelle Seligman joined our student services team as our school psychologist. Invaluable resource to have an in-house school psychologist to be able to continue to build the capacity of our staff for supporting students in various ways, as well as our special education department. Our capstone program has continued to grow and evolve, and I just want to highlight their continued push for authentic audiences and getting feedback from community partners. It's an awesome opportunity for our 8th graders who get a wide variety of electives to really hone in all of those experiences and put it into something that they're really proud of and it's authentic to them. And that team has really worked to lean on our community and our campus to really create that authentic experience for kids. So looking ahead this school year, talked a little bit about our shift to focus on those deep learning strategies. We think about that collaborative learning and that guided learning. Lindsay had also mentioned how at ASA we're trying to work with some data dashboards where teachers will be able to see their class's data compared to their grade level. And again, it's about the instructional strategies. I can think, my cohort here is comparing similarly or less than here. I need to go talk to that teacher, figure out what they're doing so that way I can try some of those strategies in my classroom. We can do that because we've taken the time to build that trust with our team. So we've been having those conversations as PLCs for a few years now. So now we want to really add that specific data component to it. This is year 2 of our leadership team, so we work on a biannual basis with those teams. So year 2 of our instructional leadership team and school advisory team. Feedback that we've gotten is the distributive leadership is working. Staff feel like they know who to go to for specific questions, which is great. It's increasing everybody's efficacy of rowing the boat in the same direction. And then lastly, our building care team is learning a lot from the other building care teams as well as we continue to develop social emotional well-being for our staff and for our students.
Thank you, Katie. Questions for Katie?
So obviously you're not the first one to talk about this, but can you describe the building care team, like kind of who's on it, what they do?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have our district care team, which is our AP, school psychs. Adriana Danielle also sit on that. Colin Jacobs sits on that team. And then within our buildings, it's the AP and then the school psych and then staff members who are really passionate about integrating care structures into the classroom. That might be come in and there's a bunch of emojis on the board and you choose the one as far as how you're feeling during the day, right? It might be engagement strategies to get kids talking with one another, self-reflection, time management, all of those hidden curricular skills that aren't necessarily in those proficiency scales. That's what we're looking to grow capacity in. So our building care team at ASA has 2 goals. Our data has shown that our middle schoolers feel really connected to each other. Shocking. It's great, right? But they really like each other. They also feel really connected to staff. The well-being and engagement is a little bit lower. And that's looking at the student perception data, and then also our building care team data. So that's what we're focusing on, thinking about attendance, and then also some discipline data. So we're thinking about doing a field day, kind of piggybacking on some of the things that you heard about buddy classes. How can we continue to build that school community? Build excitement for school. We've got, I don't wanna ruin anything, but we've got some things in the works just to get kids like excited to come in. It's things that might seem frivolous, but just fun, right? It's something to look forward to on a Monday coming in. So those are some things that we've got kind of in the works at our building care team level.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Katie. On to the high school, Mr. Bursai.
Thank you for having me as well. I'm Paul Bursai. I'm the associate principal. Just finishing off for all the principals that are not here tonight. Excited to be in front of you.
Duly noted.
What a week for them. So as I begin here, I'll start with our first goal, and this has to do with our ACT performance. And so sort of we start with K4 all the way up through 12th grade, building academic skills, and we have this test one day that they all take, and it is this measure of their academic success all the way through those years. So we're excited that we had some growth there. We had noticed that there had been some sort of stagnant or regression in our ACT scores, and so we put a real focus in that. I have a little story about that here in a moment. And then the second part is kind of what Katie was talking about related to their instructional playbook. We implemented an instructional expectation document and just had some specific aspects that really were about a regrounding after COVID. So I think maybe that's the first time the word COVID's been mentioned by any of the four of us. But last year really was the first year where COVID protocols in terms of physical health weren't a part of the school year. So it's hard to imagine. It seems like 15 years ago on that March 12th or 13th or whatever. But last year was the first year. So really trying to get back to what we knew before and what we learned throughout COVID and what does that look like in terms of classroom instruction and student learning. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, so my quick story is this. I remember in Leadership Week last year where it was Lindsay Chandelia talking about learning sprints at Horizon and thinking, wow, that makes a ton of sense, right? You identify a targeted group of students, you identify a lagging skill, you identify what you would do to teach that skill, you pre-test it, you teach that skill, you integrate that into the instruction that's already happening in the classroom, you post-test and see where they're at, right? You go from there and you take the data that you've learned, you either stay with the same goal, you set a new goal. So with the help of Robin and Danielle, who had some observation and implementation practice in the other buildings, we were able to put that in place at the high school. So what we did was we had all teachers use pre-ACT data for their 10th graders or 9th graders. We actually work with 11th graders, but look at their pre-ACT data from the previous years to identify a skill gap and then look at the ACT skills to identify what they would be trying to integrate into their classroom instruction. So we integrated that process into all core courses, and we, as you see, had some great growth. And so the overall growth, and let me go back just a moment, 74% of the class of 2024 reached their projected growth score. And so with that, we chose 65% as our goal, which I'll go back a slide here quick. We chose 65% of the class to reach their projected growth goal because 55% is the national average. So we took that 55, added 10%, and thought we want to hit that number. And it turned out that we got to 74%, almost an additional 10% beyond what we had aspired to. So we're excited to see that. And then obviously with our overall ACT data, we had a growth of 1.3 points in the composite score, which is a huge jump, and we were really excited to see that. And there's no guessing to the fact that the idea that this practice had a large impact on the ACT score. So we're excited to see where that's going. Just as a sort of a prelude here, this year we've expanded to not just 11th graders, but also 9th and 10th graders. So we're doing the same practice in all core courses. And just expanding and refining that process this year. So we're excited about the growth we've seen there. The second one, in terms of sort of regrounding in our instructional practice, so a couple of highlights there have to do with the idea through our personalized professional development. Last year, all teachers had opportunities to learn in different areas of their choice, but most of what we offered as a high school was specific to starting classes, ending classes, assessment practices, clarity statements, and those sorts of things. And so all of our staff had opportunities to learn specifically about the items that were in our instructional playbook. And so that was a highlight, I would say. The coaching cycle, so all teachers in year 2 of their evaluation cycle are working with instructional coaches. So the instructional coaches were using our instructional playbook as a motivator and sort of guide for their goal setting with teachers, so that was great. And then through our learning walks, where some of you have participated in, we always bring that instructional playbook in as a core part of what we're trying to have you observe and have teachers be doing in the classroom. So that continues to be a point of focus for us and a point of growth as well. So that is that as far as our 2 goals go. Some successes, these are not specifically related necessarily to our 2 building goals, but they're important pieces nonetheless. So the first one up there has to do with over 1,200 credits earned for post-secondary education by our students last year. That's a huge number when you think about, every graduating class is in the neighborhood of about 225 kids. You divide that out and you're looking at, 4+ credits per student by the time they walk out of here. And I was talking to a parent not too long ago, and they said that they walked in with almost like 40 college credits, and that's a pretty extreme example, but nevertheless, there are students who are leaving this building with a whole lot of a jump start on a college education. The second bullet point is really important, and I want to give Adriana Plock a lot of credit for her work with this. She does a ton of work in the summer. I actually helped her for the last couple summers on a small level. But 63% of our graduating class had professional mentors in a field of their choice. And as I look around the room, I know some of you have been those mentors, and we appreciate your support there. I would think about Lisa Jansen and all the mentors we have and volunteers we have across the district in our community. But to think that almost 2/3 of our students had one-on-one conversations with professionals in the field of their choice, and the impact that a parent says and a teacher says just doesn't have the same change or impact on student thought as what that mentor might have on them. The other pieces up there, just with the niche ratings and the U.S. News and World Report. So it's really exciting to think about our students and even selfishly my own daughter and daughter. Don't tell my daughters I said that. But around the room, we think about all of you have had, so many of you have had your students through the district and are currently here, and it's just a point of pride for all of us. So we're excited to share that. The silver recognition for AP School Honor Roll, really, we could easily be earning the top AP honor roll, except for all the college credit and high school courses that we offer. So the CCIHS really takes a chunk of AP credit out, and it just has to do with the number of students earning credit. So if you were to take those CCIHS credits and smush them into AP, and they would take AP classes, we would easily be earning their highest recognition. And then significantly exceeds expectations on the state report card is something that, again, we can hang our head on, and another point of pride. Opportunities for improvement. So one of the things that we talk about here in the first bullet point has to do with the learning sprint process. I already talked about the idea of refining that and expanding it, right? So I think we had great success with it last year, but there was a lot of learning for everybody. So between Danielle and Robin and helping Brian and I understand the process a little better, and Brian and I learning a little bit, and teachers learning a little bit, this year in our first PD day, we already had the Wisconsin representative for ACT in and sharing some of the strategies and helping us understand and utilize their resources that they have. This next PD day on the 27th, we're excited to be breaking down, even doing like item analysis of student pre-ACT tests, so that teachers can start to understand where they can be more focused in their instruction. So we're excited about the refinement of that process. The second one has to do with, we have so many opportunities for students through our Insight program and even classes that are not Insight program related to have authentic and relevant learning opportunities. And so because they're so competitive, like one program starts pulling students, I'll give one really good example. Example is like Elements of Health and Medicine. Again, some of you have probably come and seen their presentations or have mentored some of those students. That program has been super successful the last couple of years, and as those numbers go up, some of the other ones go down. So it's kind of this balancing act and juggling of trying to make sure students have all of those opportunities. So continuing to cultivate the enthusiasm around some of those opportunities is what we continue to try to wrestle with. It's not a bad problem to have, it's just something we gotta try and keep trying to balance. And then the last part has to do with our alternative education opportunities. And so what we have seen also, I would say since COVID, and it's not specifically COVID related, but we have students that come to high school with challenges, to be frank, right? Whether that's academic or behavioral or what have you. And so trying to expand opportunities for students within our setting here without trying to outsource or the bottom line is we're trying to serve everybody to the best ability that we can. And so continue to expand those opportunities in the building is our goal. So all things we're really focused on this year.
And I would say on the alternative ed, we had a new program this year. Why am I blanking on the name of it?
Compass.
The Compass program. And we've seen some real success with that. I think we've had some kids who are really struggling to function
Significantly.
in this building prior to that program, whether it be returning PHS students or incoming kids who struggled maybe in the middle school and then came and have acclimated and actually had a pretty good start to the high school. So that alternative ed program and the Compass program, there's been a lot of success with that.
Yeah, those teachers right down this hall deserve a whole lot of credit for the work they've done the last couple of years. And if you don't know much about it, then please come ask. We'd be happy to talk to you about it and show you around a little bit. As far as our graduate profile data, our contribute data, this is a little stagnant from thinking back to COVID. And so our baseline data right now is at 23% of students earning that 25 hours of service learning before they graduate. So some ideas and thoughts we have there. I know Jeff Behrens is doing a really nice job of trying to get teams to start to do some creative service learning sort of stuff. And we're also trying to look at how does this integrate into classes at a higher level? Because at this point, we have extracurricular clubs like NHS and Key Club where we're tracking that data pretty easily. But as far as something like serving others, a course where students are out in the community constantly and doing all sorts of different things to help, how are we tracking that? So that's something that is a point of improvement this year for us. As far as Create, 25% of our students, we almost met that goal. The idea with Create, again, has to do, if I go back a couple of slides to this cultivating enthusiasm around creative opportunities. When you get to the high school level as an 11th or 12th grader, there are so many students who are really, really focused on getting post-secondary credit or these other sort of earning a high GPA so you can have the best opportunities available. And the reality is that some of this work doesn't come with post-secondary credit or doesn't come with a number or a letter or something that a post-secondary institution might acknowledge or recognize. So we have to start to figure out how to like mesh those things together to make those opportunities more something that students want to take advantage of. We have a lot of students taking advantage of really neat opportunities. We want to continue to get better at that. As far as compete, I think this has been Danielle's goal for a long time, and I'm super impressed and proud of this. I remember when she told me a few years ago, 100% of our students will have place-based experience and earn post-secondary credit. I thought, wow, that's a really lofty goal. And as we've continued over the last couple of years, we've never been below 80% of our graduating seniors reaching that. And so that's impressive, and I think that speaks to how school has continued to evolve. So super proud of the compete piece there. Connect, I've already talked about. That's a definite point of pride. Over 60% of our students have mentors in fields of their choice. As far as commit and care, this kind of goes to what Katie said about students pushing the submit button. So all of our 9th and 10th graders did this, with the exception of a very, very small handful. And so when we start to think about how do we integrate 11th and 12th graders into this process, the commit piece has to do with the student-led conference, and I'll talk about this in just a moment here with more depth, but the reality is all 9th and 10th graders did that. So just trying to find a more comprehensive way of including our 11th and 12th graders in that process. And then the care piece has to do with the personalized learning plan and goal setting as well within that plan. And again, almost 100% of 9th and 10th graders have done that. It's really about expanding that and looking at other avenues, perhaps through like PE and health to expand those opportunities. Oops. All right, so some other highlights. I mentioned a couple of these a moment ago. Mike, I appreciate you mentioning Compass. So the Foresight program began last year as an alternative education program, and Compass is newer this year. We had a new Insight strand that's serving others. We had some great success. You probably would have seen some things out in the community related to the work they've been doing. In the perspective, they were highlighted a couple times. Those teachers are doing a super job with that. The third bullet point has to do with almost 100% of our 9th and 10th graders attending personalized future-ready conferences, and 88% of their families. So really, we're looking at 85 to 87% of our parents sitting with their student as a 9th or 10th graders talking about their future. And I think that the number is one thing, but when you think about the impact of what that can mean to young people and to their families and having real meaningful conversations. How many of you have had a 14 or 15-year-old in your home before? It's hard to pull meaningful information out of them. So I think that's a tribute to the success that we've had there. Almost every single 11th grader has a future planning conference with their school counselor. Jean Bjork was named the Western Regional Art Teacher. That's a huge honor for her. And then I wanted to put some of our clubs and organizations in here too, because I think that the reason that I thought that was important is there's a lot of numbers and letters, and colleges look at GPA and they look at ACT and they look at all these things. The reality is, like, students become well-rounded human beings by doing other things as well, right? And so FCECLA in their first year as a chapter had 2 national top 10 students in the top 10. So the first year we ever have done that, we had 2 students go to national and place in the top 10. That's a big deal. And this year there's a whole bunch of enthusiasm. They doubled the number of students in that club and organization. Elisa Semino's excitement and exuberance. If you've never met her before, you should chat with her for 10 minutes and see how you feel about yourself afterward. She's a special and energetic young lady. FBLA.
Oh, can you remind me, FCCLA? I'm blanking on what.
I'm blanking on it too. Give me a second. I'll
Something,
future.
it's family,
Oh,
future consumer.
Give me a second.
Yeah,
so it has to do with our
Family and
CTE
Consumer
though.
Science
So it has to do with
Department. So culinary fashion. What is it?
So we got.
Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
There you go.
My apologies. So the students that are going there are students that are working on things like family, family development, fashion design, what you used to call like home ec, those sorts of things. And so Lilo Goodmanson is one of our students who did a phenomenal job. So again, that's a program that's building some momentum and really having some success. So Future Business Leaders of America, FBLA, they had 5 national qualifiers last year as well, and a couple of kids who really were successful at a really high level there. I was talking to one of their leaders, and he said, what did he say? This was a funny way of thinking about this. Something about like being a small fighter in a big fight, but we really pack a punch. So we're a small school competing. You think about some of these schools in Chicago and other areas with like 4,000 kids. Here's this puny little Pewaukee that's really competing at a high level against some of these really competitive schools. So, and then ProStart. So Ryan DeMarz's group there was the Eco Lab. Does anybody know who Eco Lab is? Next time you're at a restaurant, look at the soap dispenser. It probably says Ecolab. So Ecolab is a restaurant and supplier, and so Ecolab chose them as the National ProStart Program of the Year last year. So that's another big deal. Almost done. So last year, as far as music, we had a number of state placers, both in instrumental and vocal. The UWM Vocal Arts Festival is another really highly recognized vocal music show around here, and so that's something that Tasha Igelski thought was really important for us to mention. Academic Decathlon, Kathy Wallace does a phenomenal job with that group. I know Danielle's very proud of their continued success. And then in sports, we've continued. So we've had a really, selfishly as a basketball fan and player and coach for a long time, it's been a really fun time to be around this school and community. So our boys obviously won again, girls were state runner-up. To have a state basketball and Gatorade Basketball Player of the Year in Milan Momcilovic, and then an All-American girls soccer player for the first time in our history as well. And let's not forget Kirk Stempert's ping pong state champions as well. He'll be super, super proud to hear that that was mentioned today as well. So again, I say all that, it's some of them, you know, we can chuckle at ping pong. The reality is there's like 25 kids getting experience in something that most other schools don't have, right? And doing it at a high level. So it's something that's important that we are mentioning in our other highlights as well. And I've already talked about these two. Well, I actually didn't talk about the first one, so I do want to mention this. So we have a little initiative called Parents as Partners. And so those of you that are parents still are getting emails every Friday from 4 of your students' classes. And so we're continuing to refine that process. But the idea there is to leverage parents as partners in students' education. And I think there's probably some mixed views by some parents and by some students and by some staff for that matter. So we continue to think about what the most effective way to do that is. But making sure that parents are having the information to be able to have an impact on their students' education is the point of that. And then we've already talked about the idea of prioritizing ACT skills and expanding that learning sprint process within the building. So big mouthful there. I appreciate you bearing with me.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, questions?
Thank you, Paul. Questions for Paul?
Actually, I have a couple, Paul.
Yeah.
One was just on this recent thing that you talked about with the email from the students to the parents, right? I know that that was something that was launched. How do you guys track that, and do you think it's been pretty successful so far with the number of students and the parents?
Yeah. So I would say that, so Brian sent out a survey. We got about 80 parent responses, and it was right down, literally almost like down the middle, a little skewed toward we appreciate. So some of the feedback has been we really appreciate the opportunity to connect with our kids. Like I said, it's hard to talk to 14 and 15, 16-year-olds sometimes about what's going on. So it sort of is a built-in structure for that, Larry. And then the other piece is I think some people think it's too much, some people think it's too little, and some people think it's just right. So that was the one that was just really split all over the place. So we'll continue to gather that data, both from staff as well, to try and find what the best way to continue forward is. We want to stick with it for a semester, just to give it enough time to really sink in. But once the first semester is over, we'll go back and make the adjustments that we think are necessary.
The other question I had, and it was a question that you, or a comment you made regarding the pre-ACT and the you're going to go into the questions and then be part of the presentations on Monday?
Yeah, so Monday, our next Monday, PD Day, the 27th, we got our pre-ACT data back, and so staff is going to be able to look at their students' performance, and we'll actually be able to have an item analysis opportunity. So we might be able to say, oh, wow, of my 25 kids in class, 16 missed that type of question. Oh, that's what they need help on. Let me integrate that into my instruction over the next 6 weeks and see if we can make a difference in that.
So it really is that specific to the content of a question?
That's the idea, yeah. And this is our first time doing it, so we're gonna have to sort of balance out the time spent, and like how we allocate time and resources toward that. But we're excited to be able to have the depth of that in the instructional, adaptation.
So, okay, and I'm not an expert in this at all, other than ACT type of tests and things like that have different questions, but is it the content area that you focus in on? Because you really can't do a specific question. Right?
Yeah, no, they're actually, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I was going to say is there are different elements and different skills that the ACT tests. And so if it's a specific reading skill, as an example, all of our core content areas are working on that, are implementing through their instruction that reading skill in some way, shape, or form through interdisciplinary literacy, right? So as an English teacher, I might say, oh, that's, again, that skill, and so many of my students got that wrong, or so many of my students are in like the area of, in the score range of 16 to 20, let's say, right? I want them to be in that 21 to 23 range, so I'm gonna take the ACT skill at the 21 to 23 range and really trying to ramp up the rigor in that skill in my class over the next 6 weeks through the instruction that I already have planned, to hopefully elevate them from the 16 to 20 range up to that 21 to 23 or 24 to 27 or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, and so part of the reason for my asking this question is a long time, well, I shouldn't say long ago, a few years ago, I was involved in the creation of certification exams for my professional society, and it's based on competencies and areas of knowledge that they should have. But it was always then trying to make sure that you had the questions that were part of that when you were taking the exam that reflected that content area. And that was always the hard part, because you had to
Right.
have the questions kind of reflect the content that you wanted people to know in terms of what's there. So, you know, how do you do that? And then
Yeah.
how do you have the appropriate question and then, or the responses? And the responses were not like simple, because they
Yeah,
were sometimes
for sure.
close in terms of what's there, but you were still looking either for the best answer or the correct answer. There was
Right.
some kind of
Yeah, and
calculation.
I can speak that a little bit. So we have a software program called Methodize that we use, and that's been a huge help because it has content-specific questions for different areas. That's one thing. But the reality is, to make that authentic and real and what you're trying to get accomplished in the classroom is something we've been trying to, again, integrate in a way that's meaningful. And so our social studies department specifically is one, they're like, well, there's no social studies part on the ACT. Well, there's reading, and social studies is full of reading. There's writing, social studies is full of writing. So it's just a matter of trying to identify those skills, not the content area questions
Correct.
that they're trying to get better at.
So methodize, is that the?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Sometime you're gonna have to show me what that does, Danielle.
Yep, I will.
There's some pretty
Because I think
dynamic
those are the
stuff
things
that it can do.
again, it's like back in the day, I mean, those were not necessarily things that either teachers had access to, or the ability to have a breakdown of the content and then the types of questions that may be appropriate, so that they can be actually kind of addressed in a classroom setting.
Mm-hmm.
So again, should help prepare our students to be successful on their ACT tests.
Right. And for some teachers, it's been like, well, we're not teaching the test. Like, no, you're not teaching to the test. We're teaching skills that are assessed, but not only there, but in real life and in your class anyway, right? So let's just be specific to the rigor level that we want students to be at, so that they can hopefully accomplish and achieve at
Well,
that
it's either
level.
the content or the competency that we're looking for is what we're trying to get out of it, right? So, I mean, the more that we can do that, the more successful the Pewaukee High School graduates are gonna be, so.
Can I speak to Methodize a little bit? I used that last year it was part of the ACT prep course, and not only did it help me on the ACT, the English and reading sections helped a lot with my AP Lang test. The science section helped a lot with my AP Stats test, because a lot of what the science section is looking at graphs and analyzing the sort of data they present. So Methodize being able to kind of prepare you for that really helped me for more than just the ACT.
Thanks,
And I
Dylan.
can also add that I am not in the ACT prep course, but it's still available for me to use. So I have used it mainly for science prep, so I can log on at any point and take practice test questions. And we also implement a lot of English into my AP Lit course. We start with learning sprints every day, so it's a part of a lot of classes for sure.
I'm super happy to hear these two saying that. It's one of those things that you get out of it, what you put into it, right? Like, you can go through and breeze through and click buttons and hope for the best, or you can try and learn something, right? And so it sounds like these two have done the latter, which is appreciated. And again, I think we've seen some good success with
Yeah, and
that.
thank you both for speaking up, because that's
Yeah, I
exactly
appreciate
what we needed to hear, is it's like, how have you guys used it in terms of your preparation work? And I think, are you trying to go for like the record or something in terms of the ACT exam, or?
I went for it, but got beat out by my brother.
Sore subject in the house. You're still pretty great, Dylan.
Thank you.
The other one, Danielle, and I appreciate you also bringing up the alternative education, because I think whenever it was last year sometime, we had the student that came in, and that to me was just like, it brought tears to my eyes in the sense that how much impact that program has had on a student that has had challenges in terms of their ability to function and work in a classroom setting, and all of the ways that we assess their knowledge, if you will, or what they know. But that student has done awesome, and I hope they're doing well in wherever they're at in college somewhere, right? So.
It's hard not to have tears in your eyes in literally every single one of those, because the life challenges that most of those students have experienced up before they're even seniors in high school are more than what most people would experience in a whole lifetime. So it's cool to see them. I wouldn't be at school if it weren't for this program, is a pretty common statement you hear out of them. So, yeah, thank you for that.
I just wanted to ask, the ACT, you used an example of a teacher that their class was ranging like 16 to 20 and she wanted to jump up. Is Methodized, like, can they take the test? Or how does she know if she meets that goal, the teacher? How does the teacher know if her students increase their score?
Yeah, good question. So Last year, they didn't, right? There wasn't that specific information. But our hope this year is with the pre-ACT data, right? With more specific data, that they can compare in the beginning what they got in the 9th or the 10th grade with their 11th grade data on the ACT. That's one way. The other way is that it's less long-term, but if you're giving a pre-test at the beginning of the learning sprint and a similar post-test assessing the same thing at the end of the 6 weeks, then you should see some growth or not, right? But you should have a better gauge of or indicator of what your students have learned during that time.
I just have one other overall comment, and it's to Danielle, but to all of you who presented tonight. So we've had this graduate profile, and it's like Danielle and I keep going back and forth, and it's like, how is this all going to play out? How is this going to work for us? But you've given us some outstanding examples of how you've incorporated the graduate profile and whatever it is, the 6 or 7 C's that are out there, of how it's applied at PLE, Horizon, ASA, high school. And obviously, it's really nice to see that, because I think that reflects that holistic education that we're trying to accomplish. And there's a lot of things, and I don't have large sample sizes, but when I see any students that have graduated from Pewaukee, I'm going to ask them how they're doing in college, what have they learned, and a couple of them that were in some classes in lacrosse, they said because of the Insight program, for example, because it gives them experience or their connections with their mentoring and all of that stuff that's there. They are like head and shoulders above other students in the classes that they're taking at like a UW lacrosse. And it's just like, wow, that's amazing that the Pewaukee kids are coming out with those kinds of background and experiences. And it gives them extreme high levels of confidence that they know what they're doing. And yes, indeed, they're competing in the college classrooms as well. And they know that, they understand that. And again, a lot of the students that I served as a mentor for, they've now graduated from college already, and they are taking jobs in the Milwaukee area and other places, because I follow them on LinkedIn. It's amazing what these kids have been able to do. So, it's a, I guess, I don't know, whatever, significant investment that we've made in terms of education and the experiences that the kids get in the Insight program, plus other things that we're doing for them. So that's all.
Anything else for Paul? Well, thank you, Paul. Thank you. I will just say that as a parent, I do like the weekly emails, because, and here's what I
100% approved.
Me too.
Yeah, so I like
Me
it.
too.
I like, because it keeps me more informed, and what I really like is my student has to think about really how he's doing every week, and really kind of spend some time analyzing it, because I think a lot of kids can just go through and, they might not be that tuned into exactly how well they are doing, and they have to sit there and actively think about it.
There's a ton of research that support the idea of student ownership of their learning is one of the highest indicators of their success. So that is a big part of what that.
So,
Thank you.
want to thank you all for being here
Yes,
tonight
thank
and
you.
for your great presentation. So have a great evening.
Have a good night. All right, moving on to personnel issues, we have one employment.
To that one.
Move to approve the hiring of Lisa Seidel as a limited-term 4K teacher.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or questions? All right, all in favor of approving Lisa Seidel as a limited term 4K teacher, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Abstain. Excuse me. Abstain.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to board goals and operations. All right, so our next meeting will be Monday, December 11th. We'll have the business affairs at 6 PM, and we will not have a policy committee,
We
correct?
will have a policy.
Oh, we will have a policy.
Because we
I'm
did
sorry.
not have one in November.
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah, we skipped November, okay. So we will have one on December 11th. Followed
Can
by
I,
our,
can I ask point of information on that?
we only have one meeting in December. We're having every other monthly meetings for policy.
Did you just, maybe I misheard you. We're scheduling both committee meetings on the same night?
They're both on December 11th, because it's the only night we have a board meeting in December.
What happened to December 4th?
That was kind of a placeholder for a possible learning session, but we don't need it. So we don't have a meeting on December 4th.
Well, when I raised a question about a policy, I was pushed back and told, you should attend the committee meetings, which is a fine thing, except that you're doing this. So which way do we want to do this? I mean, if I can't raise the questions at this meeting, and you're telling me to go to the committee meeting, and then you're double booking them,
Well, you can raise
I'm at a loss.
You can raise, that's what first read is for. First read is for a full discussion of the full board of anything that was brought forward by policy committee.
Well, the suggestion that I attend the policy committee meeting was as a result of my raising some questions about a policy, so it was not made in a vacuum. So December 11th, we're going to do both? What are we doing in January?
January, I believe there's only business affairs.
I know it's.
No, they're both.
No,
Oh, they're both
We're
limited.
both on the 15th.
I thought we were going every other month.
Did we change the schedule, Mike, and that's why we've got 2 months in a row?
But you got it in February too.
Yeah, you wouldn't need a policy committee in
In
January.
January.
We're going every other month. So
Yeah,
that,
we could cancel that one in January, because we're still pretty
and then you have
ahead
them on
the
different
schedule.
dates in February.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do want to kind of come back to this, Mary, and I apologize for any miscommunication or anything. So the nature and the life cycle of a policy by this board's historical process, and likewise, when we have months with single meetings, this is just the history of how this board's always done it, is those are nights that those are on the same evening. But I understand the issue that you're raising. But the policy committee reviews those policies. The entire purpose of first read is for the board to be able to have, as a full board, any discussions, concerns, or questions related to any of those policies and the recommended edits to those. So, and then that's why there's a first read, and then there's 2 weeks later before they're included in the consent agenda. So, so that is exactly what that first read is intended to be, is that there can be any questions, concerns, or issues raised with those policies with the full body present. So I just wanted to come back to that because that is the intention of the evening of first read of policies.
But there's also,
I
I mean, if
think
there's
I
any
knew that. Go
concerns
ahead.
with any of the policies, you can definitely
You-
communicate that
yeah.
to Bren, the chair of the committee, so.
And if you're
Well, it
not
was the
able-
chair of the committee who told me that I should be attending the policy meeting when I did raise it during the meeting, regular board meeting.
I don't think that I said that you should. I just suggested that if you wanted to, you could attend policy meetings. but
Correct,
I'm-
and that's
I've
not
always-
possible, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I've run into that too, Mary, and some of the one of the strategies that I've used is I review the policy committees, what they're working on, and I have forwarded to Jeannie in the past and to Bren any comments or questions about any policies they're working on. Cause yeah, a lot of, they do fall, and that's just the nature of the schedule, so. Is it an option that you could review and send questions to Bren, like, the night of the committee meeting? Is that acceptable to you?
I don't think that was my point at all. My point was, and I'm happy to just move along here. When I was raising questions, the suggestion that I had the option to attend the committee meeting was ridiculous. And and then, so going forward, we're trying to pull these apart. And that was presented to me as a solution. Well, you could attend, recommendation, why don't you attend the policy meeting? But we'll just work with it. Thank
And
you.
the majority of months of the year, the majority of the meetings during the year are on separate nights, but there are
Right.
some, and there is a run here. But that is something we can look at, and it might be something, Bren, to consider. Because each year we look at the board calendar, Mary, and do we really be careful in terms of, if we're doing this monthly staggering, that we really try to make sure that the staggered months are the ones that we have 2 meetings, and try to avoid, so that we would, in essence, schedule the off meetings the months that we have single.
And for
general
instance, in February, they are on different nights. So as you say, Mike, not every time that policy meets, is it the same night as business affairs?
Most
It
times it's
just,
not.
You know,
Most times it's not.
once in a while, it does turn out that way.
So during the year, December, January, July are the months that typically we only have one meeting. And then August, of course, as well, where we just have the annual meeting. So those are the 4 times per year that we would kind of have an issue like that. And I don't think there's any committee meetings, well, there's probably finance in August, but that happens there, so. But it's a good point, Mary. It's something that we want to be really cognizant of with the calendar, so that is as available as possible to all board members to be able to attend both committees. So point's well taken.
But coming back though to the first read, I mean, the first read has the policy with the edits usually highlighted in red. So I mean, if there's anything that we changed, and again, many times the policies don't change very much, if at all. But if there's anything in red, that's clearly something that could be brought up at that first read meeting where you're concerned with it, or again, feeding information to Bren and saying, oh, I have a concern about this. But if it's a broader concern in terms of the entire policy, that's a whole different discussion in terms of if you want to raise that, so.
Good night, Dylan and
Good night,
Natalie.
Dylan. Good night, Natalie.
Good night.
Bye, thank you much.
All right, then Monday, January 29th, we have the learning session with the superintendent, board superintendent relationship, the evaluation.
That's the night, yes, we look at the results of your self-assessment.
Yep. Survey.
Candace presents kind of your longitudinal data on the self-assessment, that school perception survey. And then Melissa's also participates in just supporting that board superintendent relationship discussion, which there are questions related to that in your self-assessment.
All right, and then in February, we have our 2 meetings. And in March, we have a learning session scheduled on the 4th. Okay. Legislative advocacy, anything going on, guys?
I will say that I reached out to, after work that Danielle and Robin and her team have done on Act 20, which is the new literacy law. We're identifying fairly substantial costs that we will incur meeting the requirements of that law. I did send a message to Senator Kappenga, Representative Nalen, and Representative Kitchens, who led that effort, and just indicated that I felt this is clearly an underfunded mandate that we are facing. We are anticipating about $500,000 in cost to implement the requirements of Act 20. And so that was the nature of my communication to those legislators. So just to make the board aware that I did reach out, that communication, and just indicate that, request that they use their influence to provide a higher level of resources for districts to implement this law. So that would be the number one thing I would talk about with advocacy. I also sent an email to Senator Kappenga. We were able to meet with him last year, which we very much appreciated. We've already met with Representative Nalen recently, but just inviting the senator to sit down and meet with us.
Mike, could you forward to us, or me anyway, the source of the, that figure, what did you say, 20 million?
I said 500,000.
The non-funded. Yes, could you send that?
Yeah,
What that ties to?
Yeah, it ties to, I can say here, it's the cost of professional development and curricular resources is an estimate of what we believe it's going to cost.
Do you have a specific thing that ties to, or is that just?
So there's professional development that's required in the law, and there's a list of professional development that we can choose from. And so we're currently costing out all the different options for each of the ones that they have listed, as well as then we are looking at, we just finished an analysis of our current resource that we use in comparison to what the law now requires. And so we're going to need to make some adjustments with that resource. And so the literacy resources that we're reviewing right now are all subscription-based, which is typical of all resources now. DPI is going to be releasing a list at some point in the coming months of resources as well that they recommend. But I was meeting with my regional counterparts in the North Shore, as well as in our area, who are looking at this. And as they're starting to talk to representatives from these various resources, the dollar figures are coming in anywhere between $200,000 to $380,000 specifically, just for resources at that elementary level that would meet the requirements of the law, and then couple that on top of the professional development we would be required to do. So we're going to be required to make adjustments in our resource based on the law, as well as we're required to do professional development in the law.
So the law is quite
Prescriptive.
prescriptive, thank you. It's not outcome. It's not telling a district you need to do, get this to, so it looks like this. It's telling you how to do it.
It tells us what instructional strategies we can't do any longer, as well as it says there's 7 things that we must do in it, and then in order to meet those, we have to use certain resources, as well as we have to have, we must do professional development for all of our staff based on a list that has been provided for us. Those are just a few of the elements. There's some additional pieces as well, as far as reading plans we need to do, what percentage of students, if they fall below a certain percentile, interventions we need to provide for them. So it's very prescriptive as far as what elements we can and cannot have in our literacy program.
Thank you.
But in the information that you're going to provide, you'll have that kind of specified in terms of what we're seeing and what the costs are that we're being presented with. So I think that was the big unknown in terms of when that piece of legislation was passed. It was like, oh, this is all good stuff to do, but there was not really a dollar amount ever associated with what they were coming up with. I mean, it was dependent upon whatever DPI and other folks put in there, but it was very, very prescriptive, Mary. I mean, that's the hard part in terms of when it was put together, because it was tied in with specific materials and specific content. So that's what it's gonna cost us, and there's no money to pay for that, so.
Well, they did include $50 million. That's supposed to cover 69 literacy coaches and professional development and resource. If it's gonna cost, we're one of 421 districts. I mean, and when I said it, doing some simple math, it would seem to be several $100 million short of covering what the cost of this is going to be to implement it for school districts. And I did make a point that I felt all along that this should have been performance-based, and that our performance is among the best in the state, and to, mandate this. I did comment in there that this should have been performance-based and not a broad-scale mandate. But I said, regardless, I do believe this with Representative Kitchens. I think it's very well intentioned, and there are clearly issues with literacy performance in the state of Wisconsin. However, and I've said this to this group before, as I advocated with many concerns with this literacy law, that in my 31 years in education, one-size-fits-all mandates are ineffective. And we should have been leaving this stuff to local control. My suggestion that it should have been performance-based was say, work with systems that are clearly failing. And that's where you can have some mandates in place. But now here we are. And, Whitefish Bay is the #1 performing school district in the state of Wisconsin. They're in the same boat. They're going to be forced to change, despite their performance, to something that's different, because of a law that provides this kind of one-size-fits-all approach. I could get on that soapbox for a while I personally think that that's not wise policy. I believe that the intentions are very good behind it, and this is what I suggested to him. If you want this vision to be successful, it has to begin with properly resourcing school districts to do this. And I did also point out at a time when the last biennium budget, left many districts like ours with a structural deficit. So you're compounding that issue. And in the meantime, you know, there is a substantial state surplus. So my suggestion was that there be influence used to tap that state surplus to provide us adequate resources to implement the law that they've mandated. So that was the advocacy that I included in my message to them.
And in our analysis, just to be clear, the new element, the elements that they're requiring we must do, we already do those. We have multiple resources that we use that meet those needs. There's, of course, adjustments in a few small areas, but they're relatively small of what we would need to do. In our case, it's a specific instructional strategy that the law says we can no longer do, that our resource contains. And so to remove that strategy entirely would, it would be incredibly challenging, at least K through 2. 3 through 5 is a different story. And stuff, and so, like, I just want to be clear as well, like, our literacy data, you've been hearing it for the last several board meetings, there's a lot of strong data. Of course, there's room for improvement, there always will be, and we can continue to do some things better, but we are meeting many of the elements of the law. The pieces, though, that we're being restricted to are gonna force our hand and force, you know, a pretty substantial financial dollar amount that, you know,
In a very short time frame.
in a very short time frame.
Because this is next year.
Yeah, so,
So, you know, and we don't even know what resources we can use yet that we could even apply for any of the state funding because DPI doesn't have a list out yet. And that might come in February. So the timeline's extremely compressed. So anyway, just to make you aware, I can certainly share if you'd like. I mean, I don't have, you know, I mean, I can get from Danielle kind of maybe a little bit more detail. I just provided that.
Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah.
That was helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Mike, is it possible that legislature could possibly push that timeline out to allow districts longer periods of time to look at those resources and?
they would have to go back and adjust the law.
They'd have to adjust the
It's actually in
law,
the law, it's
and-
not in the procedures or anything. So.
And based on what we know and currently where you know, from their calendar, and I mean, right now there's a push to get them to waive, there's a test, it's called the FORT test. Has a low pass rate, that's waived for special educators, that they've included in the law that basically all new teachers for those grade levels would have to pass, and so there is a push now to get them to waive that like they do for special education, because I think it's just over 50% pass rate at a time when you have a labor shortage, and there's really no research or evidence at all to show that passing this test makes you a better literacy teacher. But there's a lot of resistance to changing any of that because the perception will be, well, you're already watering down this law because you're lowering standards. So I doubt that there's the political will to go in there and tinker with that law.
Yeah.
It's hard to get things done the way that it is. And so, could they? Yes. Do I think they will? I don't think they will.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the Pewaukee Scholarship Fund participation. So as you saw in our materials, the board has given to the Pewaukee Scholarship Fund for over 15 years. Depending on the funds donated, we've given 1, 2, or sometimes 3 scholarships at the honors banquet in May. Julie provided the totals that we've donated. The scholarships each year are funded by us, by the current members of the school board. There is a pledge form that was linked and at your places, I believe, tonight. Does anybody have any questions or comments that they'd like to make about this? It's not a policy.
No, it's not a policy.
Practice,
It's-
this practice.
It's just what we've done in the past in terms of what's there, so.
All right.
Your
so
choice, right? I mean,
It's totally, yeah, voluntary. They do need an answer by sometime this week, isn't it? By Wednesday. Yeah, by Wednesday, so 2 days. All right, moving on to the WASB delegate selection. We need to have a board member serve at the delegate assembly on January 17th in conjunction with the WASB conference. Larry is willing to be our delegate. anyone else is interested, he is happy to discuss and.
I think you're an
Silence and-
excellent candidate.
Thank you for taking that job.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, thank you much. I've had good source that it said the number of resolutions this year is way down, and
that's
they've
good.
restructured the meetings so that it will be completed. Because last year they ran out of time.
I know, they ran out of
Yeah.
time, that was
So-
crazy.
So thank you. I will
And then they
gladly
ran
do
out of
that
people when
on
people
the
started
Wednesday.
leaving.
Right.
Because I don't think they had
have
a,
a quorum.
they
They
didn't
didn't
have,
have a quorum
they didn't have a
anymore.
quorum at the end, yeah.
All right. So thank you, Larry. Okay, next we have the survey, the school board annual development, survey. In our packet, we had information on that. It's something we've done, how many years? Has it been a long time?
It's at least 6 or 7, I think, now.
Yeah.
for the stuff.
I mean, this is my 7th year, and it feels like, I believe,
I'm looking back, it goes all the way back to the first year we did it was the 2014-15.
Ooh. All right. So
so it predates me by 2 years
Or
in
3
this
years.
role. So it was, the last 2 years Joanne was here, you guys were doing it.
Unless Julie wants to jump in. Some of it, and we've had different discussions in terms of with the board, in terms of how it can be used. I kind of think of it as the questions or the things that are out there in the different categories come from the best practices or key works of school boards, if you will. So that's the source of this, and it's things that we theoretically could be, should be doing, if you will, as a Board of Education, and it's a board level kind of thing. So when I think about it in terms of one of the pieces is, yes, we'll get a really great summary from Candace, who does a nice summary for us, gives us the historical data, but it's a way for us to kind of gauge our internal alignment with some of those practices that are out there. And again, we can choose to do with them whatever we want. It's not like we've got a, major improvement plan if we need to do something that's there. But I think one of the things which I know we've picked up on and done more so recently is legislative and advocacy kinds of things. I mean, so we reached out to have Kapinga and Nayland come in and do those kinds of things. I think that was one of the things that popped up in one of the categories. That was a question that's there. I don't know if it's a perfect tool, but it kind of gives us a sense of where we're at and if things that we could be or should be doing kind of going forward with it. So if I don't know if you guys all read through the policies of it, but yeah, or the questions that are
It
out there.
doesn't take that long.
What's that? No, it doesn't take that long. And it's kind of like what you know and what you think about what we're doing. And sometimes it's prompted some really good discussions in terms of how we could maybe potentially do things with other local governments, kinds of things, stuff like that.
And the survey reflects the key works of school boards, which was,
Yeah,
which was a document published a number of years by the National School Board Association related to best practices for high-functioning boards. I mean, my experience with it is it's been fuel for discussion for you guys
I
to talk
agree.
about how you
Well,
function.
and I think the other part of it too, which is why we do it typically when we do the mics, kind of like review of things as well. Because we know from a lot of the work that's been done out there that board superintendent relationships, and so Mike gets a chance to see it, other people that want to be a part of this, they can see the results, and so they kind of see where we are at collectively. But I think also helps Mike kind of get a gauge on what the board members are thinking and or where we're at. So some of the stuff could be, some of it they're just plain simply not aware of, or they wasn't covered in the orientation program, something like that. So, I don't know. It takes a little bit of time, and obviously we'll spend a meeting on it in January, so. And we usually have a really good, we do a meal or something at that one, I don't remember. We do a little snacks or treats.
I don't think we've done a meal.
Gotta have the snacks.
You can do whatever you want. You guys tell me.
I just think it's good self-reflection. And it also helps us to see as a group if there's areas where we see where we're lagging. We're not where we should be, and
Right, and it's a forum that allows us to kind of talk to each other about different things that are out there and explain things. And I kind of go back to Ron Free in terms of his comment about, sitting down and having a meal with your fellow board members, because this is too formal, right? I mean, it's like, hey, let's sit down at a table and have some meal and chat and talk about what we do and what's important for us to do, so.
I
That's
agree.
I'll give the credit to that.
And
to Ron Free, so.
Melissa might be here or might be virtual. So no, she's typically been in person, I think, here, but she might be virtual.
That's all I have. I think it's worthwhile to do it, and it'll take, what, maybe 20, 30 minutes at
Yeah.
most to do it, so.
All right, so we're all good? Keeping it, all right. Moving on to the National School Board Association membership discussion. So Julie provided some information to us for the renewal fee. It looks like it might not be going up as much as we originally thought. We need to make the decision. The renewal is due on by December 31st. Does anybody have any thoughts on this one?
Do you really want to hear?
Well,
Well,
I'll
yeah.
start.
Go ahead.
I feel like, we're heading into a referendum here. And I think the onus is on us as a board to make sure that we're spending funds in a good way, that we're using funds appropriately. And maybe, I feel like CISA, or not CISA, but CASBA. We haven't really had a chance to really experience it yet. When is that convention?
So February 23rd.
22nd to the 25th in Dallas, Texas, and at the end, whatever it is, one of the big hotels in.
Okay.
And a presentation did get approved.
Yeah, plus we've got a presentation that's scheduled there too.
So
Yeah, we just don't know when it's scheduled yet.
my feeling is, let's give CASBA a chance. Let's experience it, see how it goes for us, and maybe avoid this cost that we don't have to take on. And just be studious with our funds.
We have to take an official vote on this?
I thought we'd pulled out.
Our membership is due to expire December 31st.
Right, but I thought this board, in picking up where Bren left off here, at the time we decided to pursue that, we were saying no to NASB.
We basically deferred the decision because we had already paid for 2023. So we decided to not go to the NASB conference. We're going to go to the other conference, but we just knew that we had to then decide if we're going to maintain the membership.
Got it, thank you.
So I just have a couple things to add to it. So 25 of the state associations now belong to the CASBA group. So that means like 25 of the state organizations pulled out. Locally, the Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio folks have all joined the CASBA group that's out there. So kind of in our region, the CASBA group is kind of what's there. They, on their website, they indicate that there's 6,700 and some school boards, 24 some students, millions. I mean, it's like a large group of students that they represent because of the Midwest location for it. So yeah, it's a big group that's out there. And the one thing, when I looked at their website, I mean, their advocacy and components that they are in favor of are very concise, very specific in terms of public education and, about 5 or 6 different things that are out there that I think really focus them. Whereas the NSBA, I think, was trying to be everything to everybody out there. And I think now this is maybe either their second or third leadership changes in the last 2 or 3 years too. So they just have a new executive director at the NSBA as well. So I would move to not renew our membership in the NSBA effective whenever it's.
December 31st.
Second that.
Thank you, Jane.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or discussion?
Barry, didn't Wisconsin pull out and join CASBA
Yeah.
also?
Yeah, Wisconsin's in it too, yeah.
So my only thought is I feel like CASBA is still getting their legs under them, but I'm impressed if you checked out the website and you think that it's
There's
getting
25
there.
school districts, or 25 state
State.
associations have already joined. So
And I
they're-
do feel like we are very adequately supported by WASB.
Yes.
So,
If you look at the mission of COSPA versus NSBA, I would say that we more closely align with the mission of COSPA versus NSBA's mission, because.
I would agree.
Yeah, I looked at both websites as well. I could not find a cost for COSPA.
it's free right now. Oh, it's free because we belong, because WASB
SB.
joined them.
Okay.
So if
Yeah.
our state organization belongs, then we don't have to pay anything.
And their national convention is slightly cheaper than NSBA, from what I can see. There's a lot of complexity with NSBA, whereas COSPA's was a little more straightforward. So I have to agree with Larry there. I looked at their website too, and those are some of the things that I picked up on.
All right. Any other discussion? All right, so we have a motion and a second to let our NSBA membership expire. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. Thank you, Julie, for all your work on that. All right, finally, the Human Growth and Development Committee meeting update.
Yeah, so we had our second committee meeting on November 10th with our community committee, and you see the minutes in there, the presentation that guided our work that day, as well as the results from an activity that we did. So the majority of our time was spent doing that plus Delta activity, looking at our current teaching and learning practices, which is really one of the primary documents that the committee will recommend to the board. And so really just capturing all committee members' ideas about what they liked, as well as what they would say we should consider for change. Just because it's on the consideration for change under the Delta section, that doesn't mean that we are changing it to those things. This was just a first capture of it. Our next meeting will be having more deep discussions around any changes. And so Ashley and I will be working on drafting some things based on that conversation, just for the committee to work off of the next time. Our next meeting won't be until after the first of the year. We'll get through the holidays now. With all of that, we'll also be looking at basically any resources that are out and available on the market that also will support all the other parts of our health curriculum, right? Again, human growth and development is in total a very, very short amount of our students' health curriculum. And so our resources need to support not just human growth and development, but the totality of our health curriculum. So we're gathering those right now, and the committee will have a chance to look at that and give their input on that as well. So that was the meeting. And then if you recall, last time we did have a committee member that's no longer able to make the commitment. And so the board had given me direction on finding a replacement. I'm happy to report that we do have a replacement committee member confirmed. So Dr. Yasmin Bathina is a pediatrician with Aurora, and she's also been partnered with the district as an insight mentor in our Elements in Health and Medicine program for a number of years. And so she will be joining the committee, and I have a meeting set up with her in December to get her up to speed with everything and share with her everything that we need to do. So that's where we're at right now with that progress. So happy to answer any questions.
I can't believe I didn't think of her. She volunteers a lot. She
does. Yeah. Adriana
So
was able to give me her name, so.
That's a great
Yeah.
add, in my opinion. Any questions or comments on the materials that Danielle provided for us? All right. Moving on to our facilities survey.
Yeah, and I have I just wanted to present an opportunity. It's not additional or new information that we're really presenting tonight, just kind of a summary of what you heard from Perry and Joe at the last meeting. But just wanted to give an opportunity for questions or discussion if there were questions, comments, or things you would like to see that you wanted to share in this venue. The next steps is for at the December 11th meeting, you would have a presentation by Epstein Ewan Architects regarding solutions and that are being informed by the survey results. So we've based on those results, we've kind of narrowed some of the options and solutions that we're going to come forward and would present to you on December 11th. So
what does that mean, Mike? You've narrowed the options or narrowed?
well, I mean, in the end, you have the information that's presented here. You have obviously the full survey report. We would come forward with really what is our recommendation and some solutions to that. And I could say, at this point, we're really much more focused on those engineering and art spaces. And there's a number of solutions that we're kind of working through with them. So what you would see at that point, obviously architects don't get into really detailed, like you're not gonna see a rendering of a solution. That would happen if this board were to decide to present a referendum that passes in April, then you get then they go to work with a real detailed solution. This would be a descriptive solution with, in essence, colored boxes, right? Overlay of here's what here's where that work would take, here's what the work would entail, kinds of things. So, I can say that our intention is not to come forward with a large multi-purpose indoor facility as a recommendation. We didn't think that was supported enough, where the support was very strong for the classroom spaces and the maintenance facilities. Again, it's entirely up to this board what you want to do with that information. So we're more focused on that piece and presenting you with some options of solutions with that to help you consider crafting a question for the ballot. And that's something you would act on at the January meeting if that's what you decide to do.
Because there is a timeline when we have to have a resolution to have it on the ballot, right?
Correct. You would have to act by that January meeting to meet timelines to place something on the ballot in April.
So Epstein, how do you say it?
Epstein-Ewan?
Epstein-Ewan will be at the December 11th meeting, but our vote will actually be at the January meeting? Is that
Correct.
your
So if you can,
anticipation?
yeah, so you would have time to think about what's presented there, and I just wanted to, again, you've had some time to sit with what you saw from the survey presentation, which may have generated questions. So that's why, we had this placed on the agenda to provide an opportunity for further discussion. The December 11th, and that provides some time to think about that. If you have questions that come up, for us to try to get you those answers. And then, depending on what your feedback is, we would provide suggested, John would really work on that piece, suggested referendum ballot question, what that might look like.
Any questions or comments? Okay.
Yep.
I'm assuming we have no comments from citizens.
Pretty empty out there.
It looks pretty empty. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.